Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot mic underway. Monday edition is here. National Championship edition of the show. Chad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hutton. Ready for a big week?
Yes, Dan Dockich will join us coming up in 20 minutes from Don't At Me here on the Outkick Network. Scott Stallings, friend of the show, friend of Outkick, and headed to Augusta National for the Masters. He will join us as he gets set to tee off on Thursday and tee off on what's going to be an exciting week with Scott Stallings 1.0 and 2.0, who will be in attendance at the practice rounds. We'll tie all that in with Scott. That's coming up in hour 2. Plus, Glenn Guilbeau from Outkick.com covering the national championship game tonight with UConn and San Diego State in Houston. Chad, it's a much different vibe to this title game compared to a year ago. Kansas, North Carolina, and now UConn is a 4 seed against San Diego State, who knocks off Florida Atlantic. Our Owls knock off our Owls by a last-second shot. Look, I've been all in on the Cinderella runs of this NCAA tournament. I love the fact that you have the logos and the brands in the top 25 and the top 10 especially all season long that don't look like a college basketball season top to bottom with the Blue Bloods. But I do want this game to be close. It doesn't feel like it's going to be based on how UConn is going and just the fact that they're so consistent. It's so many different ways they can beat you. And the vibe last year that I had was we get to see the Jayhawks and the Tar Heels and a chance for North Carolina to win a championship over Bill Self and the Jayhawks. And we know it went the other way. Point being, the anticipation for tip-off for me is not nearly as climactic as I want it to be for tonight's title game. And I'm here to say the refs can absolutely ruin this. They can ruin this for college basketball because San Diego State needs a very specific way to muddy the waters against Connecticut. And I don't think the refs are going to allow them to do that very specific way. I hate it. And I think if we do get a chance to see the Aztecs play their game, it's a great national championship game. But forgive me for not feeling like this is a championship game. It is, but it's not, and I want it to be so bad. And everyone's going to point to the ratings. Everyone's going to point to the matchup, when really it's the dominance of UConn, not who's playing in this game tonight. Agree or disagree?
I agree with pretty much everything you're saying, and I think the refs could play a big part in this game tonight. It's crazy when you look at the historical implications of how great UConn has been in this tournament. They're the 6th team to roll to a national championship game, winning every game in the tournament by double digits. 4 of the previous 5 won it all. Only 1 did not win it all. Their closest game in the tournament was in the semifinal in a game they easily won against Miami by 13 points.
And prior to that was 15.
That's the closest game they've had was that game. I mean, it was 9-2 at the first media break. It was never really a game.
Chad, they've outscored their opponents by 103 points in this tournament.
They've been fantastic. They have been. Coming into the tournament, I like them because their depth. I had no idea. I'd have picked them to win it all had I known it was going to look like this throughout this run, but UConn has been terrific. I do expect them to win tonight, but watching that San Diego State Florida Atlantic game, what a joy that was. And a classic example of what we previewed last week by saying, don't let the fact that people are going to talk about bad TV ratings affect your enjoyment of these two teams, because those were just 2 veteran teams that were mentally and physically very tough, very strong, grinding each other into sand over the course of that game. And I enjoyed every second of it. That second half was terrific. When San Diego State made their run, FAU was up double digits at one point. You knew it was going to be a great finish. And then Lamont Butler with the finish. First time in the history of the Final Four that a buzzer beater decides it with the team trailing when they shot the final shot. And I did not think they were going to make this happen. I'm watching that live like everyone else, and I'm thinking, he's not even going to get it off. You know, when he was kind of dribbling, backing in, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, every kid's dream, turn around, shoot the 15-footer, and it was pure the moment he released it. What a game.
And you mentioned the finish. even more than just the buzzer beater. The game was 56-42 with 14 minutes left, and it's 72-71 finish. What a run to the national championship for San Diego State. And I'm going to ask Dan Dockich this coming up in 15 minutes. I felt like Dusty May overcoached in the final seconds of that game with the timeouts and the overthinking of things when we have not seen Florida Atlantic throughout this tournament do that. And I felt like they did, and it gave the Aztecs that chance.
They averaged a little over 1,400 fans per game this year.
Yeah.
Florida Atlantic. Their gym seats less than 3,000. Throw away, but it's not a bad spot to recruit to if you're Dusty May. So maybe this is a program that we're witnessing now with some staying power.
Chad, and speaking of ratings, maybe they're down for the Final Four in men and down for the championship game tonight. Not the case in the women's game, and that was what dominated social media Friday night and again yesterday as we saw LSU, and they hit everything. LSU over Iowa, and I'm here to tell you because I've done a show with Chad now for like 13 years. He doesn't watch the women's sport all that much. And I'm watching the Final Four in the championship game, and that's pretty much it, like the majority of America. But when I see the ratings, and then I see Chad say, you know what? There's a player on the floor that gave me a reason to tune in. What a great weekend for women's college basketball. And again, it didn't include UConn and Tennessee or South Carolina, who Iowa beat and snapped the 42-game winning streak.
I know we're going to get into the Angel Reese, the taunting or not taunting and all that. Look, a bit of controversy is good for the sport. So,
of course,
happy to talk about it. And I kind of like this story a lot. And you're right, Hutton. You know me well. Full disclosure, you could have said Caitlin Clark on February 15th.
Right.
And you could have been describing an actress in the latest Netflix series to me. I'd have no idea who Caitlin Clark was. No idea. I started watching her, at least paying attention, when I started hearing her name and seeing what was happening in the NCAA tournament. Had no idea Iowa had a player this good. That's how little I pay attention to women's college basketball. And I've been on the forefront of saying the sport has diminished over the years. The sport of my childhood that I would watch, I grew up in a small town where girls basketball was the sport. That was the sport where we were most successful in high school. Multiple state championships, state tournaments. Girls basketball is a big deal in the state of Tennessee because of Pat Summitt. And it was a big deal in my hometown. I think the sport's gotten worse over the years. I think too many women try to play the game like men, and when they do that, it's not as good. The beauty of women's basketball is the shooting ability, how fundamentally sound it was for years. And that has not been the case in recent years. But I tuned in this Final Four. Caitlin Clark is a show. I've never seen anything like it. The best description I can make is a little bit of a mix of Diana Taurasi at UConn, Shamiqua Holdsclaw at Tennessee, but she's quicker. She's fast. One of the quickest first steps I've ever seen in the women's game.
And to catch and shoot.
the catch and shoot, the behind-the-back dribble, Steph Curry level range, quick release on some threes. She is a show. I was drawn into this tournament just watching her play. What a terrific story and an amazing player and a run that, let's face it, she's surrounded by, compared to South Carolina and LSU, I don't want to diss these girls. That's rec level players. That's YMCA level players she's playing with compared to those teams. And she beat, and I say she because let's face it, she did it. Iowa did it with the surrounding cast, but she did it. And she wants to talk about her team. She beat South Carolina, who was 36-0 coming into that game.
42 straight.
Incredible. Defending national champion, all those things to get to the championship game. So I was drawn in by Caitlin Clark. I have not had that much fun watching women's basketball in a long time, and I was not alone. 6.6 million people at its height watched that late night, Friday night national semifinal game between Iowa and South Carolina, with Iowa winning. Now, I tuned into the second half after running around a little bit on Sunday of that LSU-Iowa game. I tuned in mid-run where they were down 21 and they went on a 14-0 run or whatever it was, Iowa, and that's when things got a little testy late. I thought the technical foul on Clark was stupid. I mean, this is where you get too – if you worship a technicality too much, it can blind you from common sense in sports. And I think officials do this from time. I understand the explanation. Here's the explanation. Iowa was warned for delay of game because they knocked the ball away after the ball went through the basket. And you can get warned for this. If you're trying to set up a defense or slow a team down, you can't take the ball and hit it somewhere else so they can't inbound it. They got warned for it. So on a technicality, Caitlin Clark got a technical because in a little bit of frustration, she sort of tossed the ball aside behind her back when the foul was. You can't do that. I know that the refs aren't sitting there thinking, oh, this is the star player or this is a senior and that's foul number 4. I can't call it. You just can't call it in that heated moment of a national championship game. I thought that was a miserable call by the officials. The Angel Reese thing, Hutton, I think this is not unlike so many moments in sports where we see athletes and coaches put anything into their brain for motivation. And I guarantee you Kim Mulkey is showing on repeat Caitlin Clark doing the John Cena, you can't see me thing to the Louisville bench, or whoever she was doing it to.
It was Louisville.
They put that on repeat. She sold the fact that here is this great white hope of a player that everyone's comparing to Larry Bird, and she's America's princess and America's darling, and no one likes you. They've counted you out all year. I'm sure some idiot put something stupid in Angel Reese's timeline that she took a screenshot of and she saved. I think too much is being made of, the media and everyone out there. And you said that we were too ghetto and we were too hood and we were this. I didn't see that from the media all year about LSU basketball. But I guarantee you some idiot probably posted that to them and they used that as motivation.
But that was Don Staley's comments post-game after the Final Four loss from South Carolina, was that, the coach from Iowa did say before playing South Carolina that it was going to be a street fight. And Staley post-game reference, we're not thugs. We play the game the right way. And then she didn't specifically mention Iowa. She mentioned the media and how, we know what you're saying behind our backs. And that led into the championship game against LSU, where you also had Caitlin Clark with the step back, not defending the player with the ball for Louisville outside the 3, which would be no different than what Dennis Rodman faced back in the day, or Bruce Bowen, who is known for being a great defender.
Couldn't shoot.
And they wanted him to shoot because the better players didn't have the basketball in their hand. To me, it was no different than that. And your comment about the sport itself wants to be more like the men's game, and it's not close to it. The trash talk that we saw over the weekend and the coverage of it was very similar. And the only difference is in the men's game now, Draymond Green can have 14 technicals in a season, and it's just kind of an afterthought and a page 6 headline. And it's not the front page headline that it would have been a decade ago. And that's just the era that we're in. And it's, for For a sport that just got record ratings in back-to-back games, the discussion about the "you can't see me" and pointing to the ring finger, I mean, Steph Curry has done and said worse. And that to me is the biggest point of we've seen this before, and I don't mind the trash talk. I really don't, because
I think too much is being made out of it.
The champion gets the last call here, and that's what happened, especially after Caitlin Clark in Iowa. They were doing it along the way.
Well, let me say this. I think too much is being made about the Angel Reese part of this. I think Angel Reese is making too much out of this, too. I think we've probably taken something that some anonymous idiot on Twitter posted, and she has now extrapolated that out to say, all of you.
Disrespect.
The media calls us hood and ghetto, and you've disrespected us and didn't want us to win. That's natural competitor athlete talk, coach talk. Kim Mulkey in her post-game interview was saying, you guys don't like our attitude of our team, but I don't care. I like players like this. We're ballers. And I'm the same way. I've got a different personality and we're ballers. I'm fine with all of that if that's the personality you want to have. I'll also say I can't think of an example of anyone in sports going directly to someone as respected as Caitlin Clark or anyone and flaunting that way when winning a title. You know, there's a lot of trash talk that happens over the course of a game, or you hit a three on someone, you do something, words are exchanged, fights happen. What Caitlin Clark did in one swoop of the face that was captured by ESPN towards either her bench, the scores table, or one Louisville player, I can't really tell, is quite a bit different than Angel Reese following her around the court when the seconds are ticking off, trying to get her attention to show her what she's doing and pointing to the ring on her finger that she'll now have. So the two are not equal. Again, I think too much is being made of the Angel Reese thing. I wouldn't want my player doing that. Now, that's how they thrive. That's what LSU recruits. That's what they want, personality-wise, attitude-wise. They just want a national title. I'm not one to begrudge that if that's what you want. I'm saying personal preference. If I'm the coach, I probably just say, hey, you bring that all 40 minutes that you want. We're up 17 with 14 seconds left. Probably not necessary to follow the girl around the court doing this, seeing if she'll turn around and acknowledge you. And Caitlin Clark was so tunnel vision to get to the handshake line, she didn't even acknowledge what was going on. So that was a little too much, too.
We will get into more of this, plus preview tonight's national championship game between San Diego State and UConn. Dan Dakich is next. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on.
Controversial opinion.
I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because their french fries taste like cardboard and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So it's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich.
Why not?
Because it's not two separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out.
ChatGPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just to let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. I think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed.
LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow, so they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada.
Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift is better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world.
I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go. Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
We live in a land of participation trophies. That is not the case with Coach Chad Withrow. He'll explain coming up. Hot mic rolls on with Hutton and Withrow.
Gotta earn it.
I love it, man.
Gotta
I love
earn
it. Dan Dockich earned it. Now he refuses to be added on social media. Don't at me with Dan Dockich.
Atted. I like that.
Added.
Atted.
Atted.
Do not at him.
Dan, welcome in. Hope things are well.
Yeah, things are great. People aren't doing that, though. They are adding me, and I don't like it. I'm not going to be John Feinstein, though. I'm not going to be Feinstein and jump off Twitter. Feinstein and I were friends, and then Feinstein, for whatever the reason, in the last 2 years, started coming at me about my playing career. We had a conversation, which I loudly ended our friendship. So, yeah, good for John Feinstein. He get off Twitter. Nobody will be adding him. So there you go.
So John Feinstein was a longtime guest on our show, Dan, and I love his books. Love the book that you're a part of. I love A Civil War. And when we came to Outkick, I did not even ask if he wanted to continue because I knew what the answer would be, given his thoughts about Clay and everything else. And one day he sends me a text that just says, "Oh, now I know why you didn't get in touch with me, because you're over there working for that scumbag such and such doing this and that." And I gave it a thumbs up and I said, "It was nice knowing you, John. I appreciate you joining us for so many years. Thank you. Good luck to you."
And we actually paid our guests too, Dan. How about that?
Yeah, it was great.
Man, John and I go way back. We hung out almost every night when he was writing Season on the Brink. I was a grad assistant. I used to take him to the bars, used to hang out. We stayed friends for a long time. I've helped him, he's helped me, and but our friendship ended. Actually, when he had a book, I said, "Look, come on, come on both of my shows, Outkick and the one in Indy." He said, "I'll come on the one in Indy." I go, "What's the problem?" He didn't call anybody a scumbag. But he started bothering me. And so I called him up. I said, "What are you doing?" We started shouting, dropped some bombs on him. He dropped some bombs on me, and that'll do her.
Dan Dockich with us. He joins us each Monday at this time. Dan, well, I'm going to get to the championship game in a moment. Chad and I were discussing the women's Final Four and the championship game yesterday. What was it? What was the dynamic of this Final Four for the women's game that produced the ratings we saw?
Well, I think it was Caitlin Clark. I think that she captured the imagination of not only, women basketball fans, but everybody. I mean, pros, LeBron, guys are texting her or tweeting about her. People were talking about her. Did you see this? Did you see that? I think she set the tone. Look, we've had great women players before. I mean, no quite Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi. I mean, we had great players, but I don't think anybody captured because of the shots she was making, and how she was going about it. I don't think anybody captured the whole country like her. And, South Carolina, it was a perfect storm. South Carolina's the #1 team in the country. They're tough, I guess. She doesn't want to be called tough, so I guess they're polite young ladies playing for South Carolina. And they were taking on, the Star, and the #1 team goes down. We always like that. But I thought it got not ruined. Referees didn't cost the game, but I thought it was just absolutely abysmal what happened yesterday with the officiating in the game. It took a little bit away from it. But I got to tell you, if I am in charge of women's basketball in the NCAA, the first game next year is going to be LSU against Iowa. Put it in Madison Square Garden or put it in a dome. Let's get this thing off right, because that'd be epic.
Wouldn't mind it one bit. And I guess I'm glad you just mentioned one player there as the reason. Because if I'm overseeing the sport, I'm thinking, man, if it's one player that produced this, it's time to lean into what we saw in the Final Four, which was some animosity, some trash talk. I don't think some, disagreements on social media after a result is bad for women's basketball like it's being treated.
Oh, I think it's great for women's basketball. Look, whether you agree with what Reese did or you don't, that's great. Seems to be divided along racial lines, and that's fine too. But the truth of the matter is, you know what? When you see real passion in a sport, that's when it gets serious. That's when it's like, whoa, wait a second. And not that they haven't had it before. Like, you guys know I'm a huge women's athletics fan because of my wife, my stepdaughter, and I enjoy it. But I don't think the nation saw the real angst, right? The real chip on their shoulder. We're out here and then the aftermath of it. I think the nation got to see it as opposed to, a lot of people, because ratings have been good over the last couple of years, but this took it to a whole new level. And here we are, on your show and my show and shows across the country talking about it, and probably be talking about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Kim Mulkey with her 4th national title, 3 at Baylor and now 1 at LSU in year number 2. And Dan, talking about what's good for the sport from an attention standpoint, I can't help whether I agree or disagree with her at times. You can't take your eye off that woman. The outfits, what she might say at halftime, what she might say post-game.
Or to the refs.
I think the screaming matches with the officials, I think she's terrific for the sport.
Unbelievably great for the sport. No question about it. I mean, look, the outfits, I had a bunch of, my buddies going, she's all me. I go, hey, look, when you coach it as well as she coaches it, why do you think Bob Knight wore a plaid jacket? I mean, come on. I mean, in college basketball, I always said this, college basketball is about the coaches. The coaches are like different WWE characters. The General, Mr. March. I forget what Dean Smith was called, maybe the Dean, I don't know. But everybody had their little names. Same thing. So now in women's basketball, Dawn Staley, she's creating rivalries wherever she's going. She's blanking people off. Kim Mulkey is, but I will tell you this, Kim Mulkey's game plan against Caitlin Clark was so much better than Dawn Staley's. Dawn Staley basically said she's going to beat us. When you watch both games, Dawn Staley held the wings, meaning her defensive players on the offensive wing players for Iowa, they stayed locked in. And what happened was when Caitlin Clark would miss a couple threes, 5 or 6 times, she just got to the rim. There wasn't no getting to the rim yesterday. Kim Mulkey had a hell of a game plan. Fellas, something to watch tonight. When you can take away the lane, you take away the lane on the drive or in the post, you make it very difficult, and you still contest jump shots, that's great defense. Actually, that's what Florida Atlantic did really well. They just got beat in the end. It's what San Diego State does really well. It's what last night LSU did incredibly well, and UConn does it pretty well. So just something to watch. South Carolina did it awful, horrendous, and got beat because of it.
Dan, I said to begin, if San Diego State's going to win a very specific way. UConn can win multiple ways, right? The refs can ruin this from being a very close game early on, right? Am I wrong?
What'd you say? The what? Can
the
make
refs,
it a close game?
the officials.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Look, UConn's the best team. UConn's played better basketball in this tournament, in my opinion, than anybody I've seen play at any point all year long. I mean, their average margin of victory is over 22 points. They're just blasting people. However, having said that, though, foul trouble to Sonogo. They do have 2 of everything. Shots made by Bradley, like he did, the left-handed kid for San Diego State, and, of course, officiating. How are they going to call it? You know, both teams are pretty physical. The game San Diego State against Charleston was like, holy cow. I hope they let them play like that. They weren't going to call foul unless you whack somebody on the arm in the act of shooting. I hope they let them play tonight. I do think this. I think San Diego State is going to have to score in the mid-70s to win the game. I don't think they can hold UConn to, in the low 60s, high 50s. I think UConn's just got too much. Now, whether San Diego State can do it, who knows? I'll tell you a great story, though. The kid in the middle, the kid Leday for San Diego State, he was at Ohio State when my son was on staff. And what a great kid and a great mother. Like, I had an unbelievable chat with the mom at practice one day, just in the foyer. And I didn't realize he had transferred there. It's his 3rd school, and he was just doing work the other day. That work that he did in the middle of the lane is going to be much more difficult because there are not 1, but 2 massive dudes for UConn. And if they don't get that from Leday, it's going to be a struggle for San Diego State tonight.
Dan Dockich with us. Maybe I'm just way off base here. I can view a way a mannerisms on a court or on a field and say, okay, this guy's locked in, or he's going to miss the kick, or this is going to go against them. San Diego State's going to get the ball. They got a chance to win. I thought the timeouts at the end for FAU and just the overthinking of the situation led to what we saw. Again, during the timeout, I'm thinking they're talking way too much as if they're down 1 instead of up 1, and I thought they rushed things.
Yeah, that could be. It's always tough. I always say this about those things. Unless you're in that huddle or unless you really know your team, it's really hard because I was always very, very careful broadcasting games to say who should get the shot or when a coach should or shouldn't call a timeout at the end of the game. I'll be honest with you. You look in guys' eyes, and sometimes, like Johnny Davis or Janelle Davis, he wasn't there. Like, he wasn't there all game. He was lost into himself, and that really hurt Florida Atlantic. But I'm always a little bit careful to criticize, because if you don't know, like, you got to look at some guys, and you know your team. You've seen it almost 40 times. Man, this timeout, we need this timeout. Let's be honest. The bottom line, and again, I almost say it every time, make the shot, you're a hero. You move on. Miss the shot, we're talking about Dusty. It's amazing. I swear to God, it's amazing how at least one game in the Final Four comes down. Hopefully tonight we'll see another one just like that.
Dan, a couple of coaching questions for you from late in this game. I know it worked out for San Diego State, but I'm screaming at the TV to foul when there's only a 6-7 second differential late in the game on that. Were you doing the same But I did agree. Once you get the ball, I always like sort of the broken court setup and not taking a timeout and instead playing it out and seeing if you can have an advantage and not letting the defense set up. What did you make of that final sequence?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm sitting there going, man, 6 seconds, all right. Almost the best thing to do is make a shot or get fouled if you're FAU, right? Second best thing to do is to dang near hold the ball and take a 30-second shot clock violation, because now you shoot a shot, you rebound it. Now everybody's moving down the court. If you have 6 seconds and you make them start with their backs, coming back to the basketball. But that was a gutsy move. I was going to say a word I probably shouldn't. That was a gutsy move. And then on the other side, this is really weird with San Diego State. Their only double-digit scorer is Mark Bradley, the left-handed kid. He was not in the game. He's never in the game at the end like that. I've watched them so many times, and they say, well, Bradley and another kid, I can't remember his name, are out. So what you've done is you have taken out your best scorer, and the kid who was hot early made a couple buckets in the second half, and you're saying, all right, I thought they would get the ball back, call timeout, get Bradley and the other kid in. They didn't, but they got it to the right guy, the all-time leading scorer at Reggie Miller's school, I guess, and he stroked a picture-perfect jump shot. Here's the thing you look at as a coach. After it all clears, and you're sitting down there and you've watched the possession, if you can stomach watching the possession if you're Dusty May, you go, how many times out of 10 do they score in this possession? I guarantee it isn't much. Because think about it. Not only do you got to get down in 6 seconds, not only was their defense pretty set, but it's a huge event in a dome, for crying out loud. So credit the kid Butler, credit the team that won. Kid made a great shot. And you know what? In Dusty May and all those kids' life, they'll be thinking about that, I think, forever. I would. I still think about 4 shots or 4 plays that cost me games different points in my life now. And I'm old.
Dan, I don't want to crown UConn yet before the game is played, but it does feel like, to me, this is very sustainable for Dan Hurley and what he's built at UConn, and this thing could continue rolling on, where they're going to be a factor in that national championship hunt year in and year out. What do you think about him as a coach and what is building there at UConn?
Well, I think he's evolved. He even said he's been yelling at the officials too much. My friend Seth Greenberg is kind of a mentor of his, and this is going back, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and it's always been one thing. Danny, you got to learn to control yourself. Danny, you got to coach your team. Danny, you can't worry about what the refs or the other coach or what one of your players is. You got to coach your team, and I think Danny's really done a good job of that. I may have said this last week on this show. He has had only one player from, I think, last year's team leave, a kid named Gaffney that went to Florida Atlantic. And he coaches hard. Like, he drops the big bombs on players. He's just not tippy-toeing around. He drops the mothers on them, you know what I mean? And makes them work incredibly hard. But he developed an operation where they love it. And you got to credit. It's not it's not everybody gets a trophy operation there. And I do think it's sustained. He's gone into stores, which is an incredible basketball town, credible basketball city, and if he wins tonight, I want you to think about this. 3 different coaches have won national championships there in the last 10 years, or 12 years, I guess it is. It would be Danny Hurley, Ollie, and Jim Calhoun. That's unbelievable in a town like that. That is not a recruiting mecca. That is not hey, look, I got to go to Storrs, Connecticut to enhance my life. They've done an amazing job with basketball in that place. Man, hell, in Indiana, where we think we built basketball, we haven't won a national championship since 1987, and we've had 17 different coaches, or however the hell many it's been.
It's sustainable there. Is it sustainable with Miami, or is it just John Ruiz that's making that what it is?
Yeah, I think John Ruiz makes that sustain. I mean, everybody that I talk to tells me that this transfer portal is not about, hey, look, how do I fit? Guys, it used to be if you were going to transfer, you were going where you could play. I mean, that's it. Where am I playing? And even when they had the 5th-year transfer before the transfer portal, it was, where can I go that I can play? Period. Well, now it's, hey, well, how much money you got for me? I've had so many coaches tell me it's not covert, it's overt. It's just like, hey, what kind of deal can I get here? So John Ruiz becomes an incredibly important part of what's going on. And you saw the results of it. I mean, those twin girls led the team to what, an Elite Eight?
Yep.
They were terrific. He got banged for his buck. Other teams are sitting around here going, wait a second, I want a John Ruiz. Give me the list. Who can we get? It's not covert. It is out there right in front and in people's faces, so that becomes a big deal.
You know, a great test case for NIL is going to be Caitlin Clark next year at Iowa, because she's not going to go pro early to the WNBA. She's got 1 year left at Iowa. And I'm thinking, watching her, if she gets back in this situation where they're a high seed a year from now, that's the type of person that could really benefit from companies using her as endorsements and making a lot of money. I wonder how much more money she could make in 1 year at Iowa than in a career in the WNBA, or if that would even be possible or close to it.
You know, I don't know, but I know this. Iowa's a pretty good place for the NIL, people are telling me. Columbus, Ohio's great because they have all those businesses there. I'll tell you this, if you're Caitlin Clark, right, and you walk into the AD and the coach's office and say, look, I want $7 million. I saw the gymnast at LSU is making whatever she's making, $3 million. I want $4 or $5 million. Now, I'll stay, but I want $4 or $5 million. And then my people are calling John Ruiz going, hey, John, how about $4 or $5 million? I mean, she wouldn't do that, okay? I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem like she would do that. But what are they going to say?
Well, I don't know about $4 or $5 million. The top salaries in the WNBA are what? Like 400,000?
I'm looking at it right now.
On3 has her NIL evaluation at $192,000. Caitlin Clark. That's second only to the Cavender twins at $700,000.
Three players, by the way, are tied in the WNBA for most money, biggest salary, and it's all about $228,000. So, I was thinking more along the lines of, could she make $500,000
right
at Iowa, right? Double that.
I'll tell you this. I had a lawyer from Tuscaloosa, and the young lady is a family friend. The pitcher, Montana Fouts. I had a Tuscaloosa lawyer told me Montana Fouts, the pitcher for Alabama, makes $1 million a year. Now, I don't know what's reported in these things. I don't know what the NIL is. I'm just telling you what a lawyer from Tuscaloosa told me going back. Don't know if he's right.
We're talking about two different things. Dan, we're talking about two different things. What I'm talking about is legitimate NIL. I'm saying Gatorade, Nike, they could all go to Caitlin Clark and pay her a ton. Iowa's not going to step up and pay her much money, or boosters won't for women's basketball like they will at Alabama or other places. I'm saying this is a good test to see about legitimate NIL, making endorsement money for what she's done.
Well, that could be, but I'll tell you this. Iowa women's basketball, for a long time in the high school ranks, they played 3-on-3. And really, it was the most popular sport in the entire state. So I'm just telling you, Caitlin Clark, in that state, from there, with the history of women's basketball in that state, it's unlike any other. I don't know the difference, I guess. Maybe I got to research it on legitimate and illegitimate NIL money. But I know this, when I read some of these folks in women's athletics are worth 3.5 or whatever it is, I'm saying, hang on, Sloopy, because this woman has made more money for more people than any gymnast from LSU or any set of twins at Miami who are really, really ranked high, maybe the highest. I'm just saying, legitimate, I don't know. And I think most coaches will tell you there's no such thing as legitimate and illegitimate, because, frankly, there's nobody monitoring the entire deal, the entire situation.
Well, and at the start of the women's season in October, she inked a contract with Nike along with Bronny James. So she's already got that. She's got Instagram posts with Buick, Bose, and
she's
a
making
supermarket
money for
company.
sure.
Yeah. So it's Dan Dockich, Don't At Me, Making It Rain, mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern. Dan, always appreciate you, man. A great show today as always, and we'll be watching tomorrow morning.
Hey, thanks for everything you guys do for us, man. I appreciate you guys coming on. Chad, great stuff today, and thanks for having me, fellers.
Always enjoy having you on too, Dan. Thank you.
When we come back, a story that Dan would be proud of, and it has to do with Withrow. It's Chad not handing out participation trophies and not handing out what would be a prize based on what's at stake tonight for his team. And I'm sure that Odell Beckham Jr. would disagree with you on this. He needs to get paid and paid now.
It's a lesson in humility.
But he doesn't want anyone knowing exactly how much he wants to sign a one-year contract. All that straight ahead on Hot Mic. Recently retiring. Your locker was very close to Tom's locker, wasn't
right next
it?
to 12, yeah.
What was that like?
Man, it was cool, man. He's a funny dude, man. He's a nice guy. Joke with him every day. You know, he's a good dude, man. He's probably one of the only dudes that I know that walk around in a bathrobe in the locker room, bro. So
you go up against him in practice all the time. Could you see that big jump coming from Daniel Jones going into this season?
Man, when I first played against Daniel, you know, coming in last year and seeing him work, man, I knew, you know, the talent that he had. It was just one of those things where, you know, you always hear the saying, God's timing is always right. It was just one of those moments where you knew eventually it was going to click and everything was going to work out, not just for him, but for us as a team. And I'm just so happy for him.
Which video game are you most proud of making the cover for?
Oh, definitely Madden. Madden, yeah. Like I remember I come from a big family. My mom had 6 sisters and 1 brother, and a lot of cousins, 30-some cousins, and you know. And I remember one of the younger ones was like, "Man, you're on Madden. You're really good." And I was like, "Cuz, like, I was the high school #1 player in the country.
Yeah.
I broke every record at Alabama, All-American. I get the pros. I'd won the MVP already. You know?
Yeah.
Been to the Super Bowl, won the MVPs. Like now because of man, now you're cool. I was like, oh, okay.
You had done a few things.
Yeah. You know, now I'm good. Okay, all right. Well, that's how it works in y'all's minds.
And I remember when I first started working in the morning news. Shout out to Drew Kaliski, super producer for NFL Today. He was just talking about the season. How you feeling? You know, you ready to go? Are you excited? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like awkwardly hesitating to ask me a question. And I'm like, what's up, man? Speak your piece. And he's like, do you know what's going on in the NFL? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, do you know who plays for what teams and who's been traded where? I'm like, yeah, bro, what do you think? I'm living under a rock? And this is my job. I'm studying just like anything else.
Got a little accent over here.
I know. I spilled my water. Thankfully, it's just water, and most of it was ice.
Got to hold your water.
That's right. Chad, Odell Beckham Jr. needs to hold his water on the contract.
He does.
I don't know why he's getting upset. The latest report, Duff Kleiman put out that Odell's you're good, David. Yeah, looking for $15 million a year, and that's coming from Rich Cimini, who covers the Jets. I don't know why that's such an issue with Odell. 1 year, $15 million. He's not going to get that now. I think that's the problem that Odell has with it. It also was an April Fool's, not an April Fool's, but an April 1st report. So he's saying, hey, April 1st was yesterday, retweeting it. Don't read into this. And he's done that before with the other money that he was looking at. But I don't know if a team's going to reach out and do that right now based on the fact you have the draft coming up, and then you reset where you are depth-wise at the position, and then that's when Odell Beckham Jr. comes in, right? And the market is in the favor of the teams right now, not with Odell Beckham. And by the way,
he's in no rush.
The Jets seem to be the team that everyone's talking about. The team that makes the most sense to me is Kansas City. Look at what Patrick Mahomes did without Tyreek Hill. He threw for 5,000 yards for the second time in his career, the third quarterback to do it. They just lost Juju Smith-Schuster. If I'm Odell Beckham Jr., I'm wanting to play in Kansas City, not in New York.
Yeah, either one. I mean, look, if you're Odell Beckham Jr. at this point in your career, you won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. I know he got injured in that season, but you want to play with the best quarterback you can play with,
right?
To go try to win a title.
Yep.
So who has he not played with at this point in his career? Well, there's two guys right there, Patrick Mahomes, and then you've got Aaron Rodgers, two guys he hasn't played with yet where you know you can get on the same page with those guys quickly. He is a pro. We saw that with the Rams when he joined the team, and he was immediately productive. So that is the intrigue. If I were him, the money's going to be there, and there's no rush to him. Like you said, Hutton, you wait a little bit, and the market will be more in your favor. But go play with one of those two guys and go win a Super Bowl.
Well, and I think the other reason he's sensitive to the number being out there is he knows he's not going to get that number. So it's going to be, he signed for significantly less than what he wanted or was asking for, when really he's just going to sign top dollar for whatever the market dictates. Smith-Schuster, I believe, had a $9 million one-year contract, and he turned that into a $33 million deal where 22 of it was guaranteed.
And theoretically, if he does what the Jets are hoping Aaron Rodgers can do with this offense, he can parlay the same deal with the Jets. Go in there, produce big 1 year, they win big, and then you got options.
Some great April Fool's Day comments on social media. You had the one from the St. Louis Battlehawks in the XFL that trolled or tried to, saying that released a statement that they were relocating to Los Angeles.
That was my favorite.
An official statement from the team. That was great, especially giving the sentiment of St. Louis to the City of Angels. And then you had Caleb Love going to Duke from the transfer portal. Which
one looked very real the way it was posted.
And he also put out there that, really, April Fools. Well, handled well by Caleb Love, unless it's actually true that he's transferring to the rival.
I doubt that would be the case.
Headlines next, including Mike Gundy.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into Outkick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really got to lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here, Monday edition for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. 6th and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Chad, Mike Gundy, head coach at Oklahoma State. In purpose, in theory.
He's like the elder statesman of college football now. He's been around so long. And so long ago was that I'm a man, I'm 40 speech
and
took place.
He could be a spokesman for how to renegotiate a contract and stay at the same school multiple times, too.
Expert.
In theory, headline-wise, I don't disagree with the premise of this. Mike Gundy claims college football needs lengthy contracts for players. Lengthy meaning 4 years. And then if you want out of the contract due to the transfer portal or NIL, well, you can have that freedom to request that and then hit the portal with your NIL attached to it, I guess is what he's referencing here. But he says until we have that, that none of this is going to get solved. We're going to have complete chaos. And as far as the contracts are concerned, where you have employees instead of student athletes, quote from Gundy, I've suggested it. I don't know if anybody's listened or cares, but high school kids ought to have an opportunity. So you want a 4-year deal? Sign a 4-year deal. But you're bound to that 4-year contract unless your head coach says he'll sign off and let you go. Well, that was the system we had, really, once you signed the letter of intent. Unless the coach let you out of that letter of intent and allowed you to walk, you had to sit out a year. In this case, he's saying, hey, if the coach lets you go, you can go. But even in that realm, we had coaches, you can go, but you can't go here. You can go, but you can't go in conference. Now you can, and you can play immediately. So Gundy continues. until they come to contractual agreements in recruiting, that's where we're going to have to do as that's what we're going to have to do as coaches. That's the downfall right now. We don't really know how to manage our numbers because we don't know what we're going to be faced with. Now, that is true. But saying that, sign a 4-year contract, and if you want out, the coach wants you to go, that's fine. Look in the mirror. I mean, the coaches all the time are bouncing without much penalty, or the penalty of the team that wants to pay the buyout to the school for said coach. You sign a contract saying you're going to be there for 4 years with the player that's about to sign. He won't do that. Not under the same circumstance where, we'll have a team vote and I can leave if they let me leave. It doesn't go down like that. And once you get something wide open, why on earth would you give it back? That would be my response if I'm the players right now.
Well, it's interesting in the theory about the really good players. They can just sign 1-year deals and then renegotiate or go somewhere else. But everyone else should lock into a 4-year deal. So I know what my contract looks like. And I'm thinking, okay, great. How do we decide who those other players are? And here's also the problem with the quote-unquote other players.
Yeah.
Those other players are the ones being run off of teams every other year.
But he's saying you don't know your numbers, and if you have a chance to improve versus keep what you have who has been invested in the program, or we've extended an offer, but here's a better player that's going to make our program better, the coach is going to take the other option regardless of loyalty there. But if you sign this 4-year agreement, by the way, you'll show your loyalty. So go ahead and sign, and you can stick around if you're not the 5-star athlete. Which, again, there does need to be regulation. But, Chad, it's not going to come, at least for me, I'm not looking at Mike Gundy as being the voice of reason when it comes to contracts and using it as leverage to get something else and get more, because he's done it time and time again.
Yeah, he's got a history of doing this, twice with Tennessee, in fact, to stay at Oklahoma State and re-up and show that he's loved elsewhere and sign for the money and the amount of years that he wants at Oklahoma State. So he's not exactly the one to be talking about this. And I'll go back to, how do you decide those other players that are in that 4-year pool that you're going to sign to 4-year contracts? And what happens if you leave the school? It doesn't make an allowance for that. It says the coach can let you out if you're under a 4-year contract. Well, a coach leaving, just like a player would, should also allow that player to be out of that 4-year contract. That's a broken contract at that point.
But there's another problem with the portal where the player enters the portal, the coach that they were playing for replaces said player, and then that player doesn't end up where he believed he would. And so he's back into this purgatory where, I mean, there is some, you should have some ability to help out the quote-unquote student athlete, which is a joke. I understand that. Where if you enter and you're one of 3,000 and you don't have anywhere to go, there should be an area where you can expand a roster and a guy's got to sit out a certain amount of time if he wants to come back after making a mistake. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that time frame is, and I don't know how many on the roster deserve that opportunity based on what goes on behind the scenes. But this is not just a cut and dry thing that you can just say, yeah, let's sign this contract and all is good. No, not whenever the big money in coaching and especially in college football you're always going to be replaced by the guy who's much better than you on the roster. That could be a 5-star freshman quarterback, or it can be the junior that transfers in that didn't get enough playing time at, South Carolina, and now he wants to go and be the starting running back for Oklahoma State. I don't think Gundy's going to point to the guy that's been there for 3 years and say, well, he's been here longer, so back him up. They're not going to choose Oklahoma State if that's the case.
Yeah, and that's why I think we're headed eventually to a 50 to 75 or 50 to 60 team super conference, that those rules are going to be different than everyone else in football. It's been headed that way for a while. And you could even argue right now it's really a 50-team super conference where they're playing a different ball game than everyone else. They can go raid the lower levels and offer NIL money to transfers who have performed well at that level and bring them up. It definitely happens all the time in college basketball too. I think all those things are true. This is going to sound awful, but we're talking about this with the Lamar Jackson thing. Mm-hmm. Is it collusion, right? Is collusion what's going on? Well, college football could actually benefit from the ability to collude. The problem is the power schools will never do it because they're too competitive.
Imagine
so
Texas
they will
A&M
continue
doing that.
to raid whoever they can get from another program. But here's an example. I recruit Jonathan Hutton I'm Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. I recruit Jonathan Hutton, 3-star quarterback, comes in. He becomes a Heisman Trophy contender by year 2. Jonathan Hutton decides he's not making enough in NIL with me at Oklahoma State. He's going to enter the transfer portal. And the response from those 45 to 50 other schools is, we have a gentleman's agreement to not take these players and give them more money once they're locked into a school, so you have no offers at that point.
Well,
that would reset everything to get back to more of what college sports fans want. It's never going to happen because someone's always going to take the bait and jump to try to make themselves better. But you get closer to that happening if you elevate those 40 to 50 schools into one super conference,
and then you can regulate.
That are playing the same. Yes, you regulate like the NFL. You have central scheduling. You have a more clear-cut set of rules on NIL and what you can pay. All those things are more uniform.
And maybe you have a ceiling. You don't have to regulate a floor for it. The program can still pay as little as they want in NIL if they're not going to lean into it. And not every university is created equal. We certainly know that from a program, football program, athletic program standpoint. But until you have the coaches, and I think part of his argument is valid where he says, I've mentioned this in a room and nobody really responds to it. I also took that to mean there are a lot of ideas that are floated out there that don't really go anywhere. They're just kind of it's a wasted conversation of brainstorming ideas that nothing's picked up on because who's leading it? Like if Gundy's in that room, who's leading the charge from the Big 12 where you have certainly the commissioners there and others, but then what's happening after that? After that day or that week of spring meetings or what's going to happen with media days? What goes on after that other than sitting back and waiting and just brainstorming ideas to respond to what happens? Where's the guy that's going to be proactive instead of reactive? And that guy's Greg Sankey. He will be proactive instead of reactive. And then I also think what Gundy's, I'm reading between the lines here, what he's saying, he's in a conference that's going to react. He's not one in a conference that's going to set the standard for moving forward with this. And that's the struggle for a lot of programs across the country. It'll be based on 5 or 6 programs in the SEC and the Big Ten with those school presidents, with their AD, and with their commissioners, which is why the Big Ten hire for the commission is going to be a massive deal for college sports. They'll be leading the charge in what you're discussing alongside Greg Sankey.
We are in a transformative time in college sports.
Chad, I commend you. You told me, well, first off, you're crushing it as head coach of the Lady Red Sox. The Little Red Sox. Still unbeaten, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
4-0 right now.
There's something at stake for the 5th win, and I love the plan that you laid out. And what initially was, Hutton, you're going to love this. It's not really a fair or foul because I know we're going to come down on this, and you're right. But explain the setup and the poll question that's available online.
So we were getting our team pictures done recently, and sitting there, just
you have them hold up number 1 already?
No, didn't do any of that. We're right now. You know me, Hutton.
I know.
I don't boast. I'm very honest with my players, with the girls on the team.
You are,
and I'm honest on that. We are not the best team in the league right now. 2 years ago, in the last Red Sox iteration of the other league, we were clearly the best team.
Then you aged out,
and I told you that was going to be very disappointing if we did not both go undefeated and win the title that year. And we lost the one game I didn't coach, and then we won the title after that when I came back. Unbeaten while I was there, lost the one game I wasn't. Not important, right? It's not about me.
It's very important.
I don't want to make this. I'm not Kim Mulkey wearing those outfits in the dugout. It's not all about me. It's not a me sport. I am the coach. We're sitting there getting ready to take pictures, and I noticed in the back of the Red Sox jersey, our sponsor is McDonald's. And it's some family-owned McDonald's in where I live. And I said, man, they're our sponsor. You think they could hook us up with some chicken nuggets or something? We got to get something done. So that led into one of the girls joking back and saying, yeah, we should get McDonald's. And I said, well, you should earn the McDonald's.
Yes.
And they said, well, what do we need to do to earn McDonald's? And I thought, man, I am now on the spot. I'm going to have to offer something up to these
gonna have to
girls.
buy a
And
bunch
they
of
were all
McDonald's.
ears. You can. It's herding cats every time of the day. But once I offered up paying for something, everyone perked up. Ears were burning. They were listening. Yeah, Coach, what do we need to do to earn McDonald's? And at the time, I think we were 2-0. And I didn't even look at the schedule. But I said, you know what? If you win 3 more games to start the season 5-0, I will personally buy all of your McDonald's. We will have a McDonald's party, and we will make this happen, together. But I'll be paying for it. So we're now 4-0. We go for 5-0 tonight. Playing a very good team. Probably a team about our equal in this league tonight.
This is for playoff seeding.
Definitely not a given. We're away. We still got 8 games before playoffs. So we're not even into the playoff
You're
season
thinking
yet.
about them, though.
So definitely thinking about it, but also definitely thinking about how to make this work tonight. So I posted this poll question. I promised my 7- and 8-year-old softball team McDonald's, team sponsor, if they started 5-0. They are now 4-0 and going for 5-0 tonight. There are 12 girls on the team. If they win, how should I handle this transaction? My initial plan was to go buy 12 $5 McDonald's gift cards. I am here to tell you they do not offer $5 gift cards. And in fact, when I went into the one McDonald's, they had no clue what a gift card was, apparently. I asked them if they had gift cards. No one there could talk to me about even what I was trying to explain what a gift card was. It was like Jerry Seinfeld explaining the reservation. No clue. Went to a Walgreens next door. They have all the gift cards on the wall to check out.
Yeah.
$15 is the minimum McDonald's gift card. So I thought, I'm not doing that.
It's like tipping now.
So here are my options. They can order whatever they want. They win tonight. We're going to the McDonald's next door to the park. I will run my card like I'm at a bar starting a tab. The McDonald's manager's going to say, sir, is this open
Chad's
or
going to be
closed?
Mr. Beast and just buy the thing.
Do you want to open it or close it? Keep it open. And every single girl will go up there and just get whatever they want. I've been informed by parents of this team when I said that I should just get them a Happy Meal. They said, oh, no. These girls don't eat Happy Meals anymore. And I'm thinking, all right. So I'm doing the math. I'm like, this is going to be like $160 with the way value meals are priced now. So they order whatever is one of the options. That, there's no big surprise here. But everyone is responding, and the majority of people are voting. They should be able to order whatever. Other options. Gift card limit plus invite. Don't think that's going to happen because they don't offer the gift card that I want. Now, I brought this idea up. Cash. I want to be able to hand them something for winning. This is what I call pre-NIL. I'm teaching them the lesson early. If you play well, you'll get something in advance, right? $100 handshakes become a $5 handshake. I hand out $5 bills like I'm on, DuckTales. And I'm just handing out money to these girls, and then they can go spend the $5.
How many are on the team?
However they want at McDonald's. 12 girls.
Okay.
So that'd be $60, right? I wanted to keep it around $5.
Sure.
Plus, I'm inviting them all to, you can use this now. What I mean by invite is I'm going now. Let's all go have McDonald's together to celebrate. Or you can use this $5 or gift card whenever you want if your parents say you can't make it tonight. The other one is, and this to me is the most uncomfortable one, that I'm being told from people that you should just tell the team this, that I just say, I'm taking everyone to McDonald's, but you can only get a Happy Meal or ice cream. That is option number 2 right now with the votes. We're already 727 votes in. 19.4% say it's okay to stipulate Happy Meal or ice cream is what I'm buying. 77% say they order whatever they want, and I pay for it.
I think you should order whatever. That should be the stipulation, as long as they win. That's the key here, right?
Oh, they're not getting anything if they lose. And I'm going to tell them. Now, I'm not going to say, you never get it. I'll say if you win the next game, which is Wednesday night, then I'll take you Wednesday night. But Wednesday night's game's late, so maybe not, actually. So I'll have to rethink that. But I also think, isn't it weird if I just go and say, now, parents, I'm only willing to buy a Happy Meal or a small ice cream cone, and the rest is on you. I feel like that's unspoken. I feel like I've got a group of parents that will honestly just say, we're not going to get the double quarter pounder with cheese and everything else on the side and a milkshake and all that. Parents will be there to regulate what their daughter orders on my tab, right? So I don't think I have to say that. Okay. Yes, I don't think I need to say,
I think you're going to be okay.
Happy Meal, thank you.
And
I was making sure I wasn't crazy.
And I also
that they're not just going to go and start ordering, 15 things a piece.
And finally, I love the fact that after the win tonight, you will have across the field in the third base dugout. I'm assuming you're first. I don't know. Third place dugout. You've got the
third base.
Third base.
We're not
excuse me.
shooting for third place.
Third base dugout. You have the other team, and the coach is like, look over there. Coach over there, open tab at McDonald's.
Well, that could be used as it's like the champagne.
You could have had that.
With the plastic over it.
Go get water out of the
they put on, right? You put the champagne over the top. Like that could be used as motivation if I get the McDonald's too quickly. If I've got someone bringing 50 packs of chicken McNuggets over, they're like, look at that. They're up only 4 runs right now. They're over there celebrating. They're already getting their dipping sauces out for those chicken nuggets. What are you girls going to do about this? You going to stop them from enjoying those delicious nuggets? Or are you going to sit here and you're going to let them eat those chicken nuggets? That is what we can't have either. That would be my dream, is to bring a bunch of food to them, but someone would have to leave the park to go get it and come back, and we'd have to do it knowing we're going to win. So we'd have to have a pretty big lead for someone to go and then bring it for the end of the game.
I like the motivating factor.
Decisions, Hutton.
Well done. Early in the season for a championship team. Coming up, Scott Stallings is playing the best golf of his life. He's qualified for the Masters. And as he gets set for Augusta National, which tees off on Thursday, he joins us to kick off the week. Scott Stallings with us next on Hot Mic.
What is your most controversial opinion?
I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because their french fries taste like cardboard and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So
it's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich
Why not?
because it's not 2 separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out.
ChatGPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just to let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. I think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed.
LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow. So they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada. Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift is better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world. I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go. Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
One of our favorite month time frames, combining the end of March and then into April, is you get the championship game tonight, of course, right after putting a bow on March Madness. And then we head to Augusta and the Masters. Hunter Withrow, back with you on Hot Mic. Scott Stallings is headed to Augusta, qualifying for the Masters, the major tournament this week. Scott, back with us. Great to have you back on, man. Thanks for previewing the week ahead. How are you?
Good, man. How are you guys?
Doing well. And by the way, this is Scott Stallings 1.0. 2.0 joins you later in the week, right? For those that don't know, there was mistaken identity where Scott Stallings in Georgia received Scott Stallings on with us, his invitation to participate in the Masters.
Yes, I actually met him for the first time yesterday. I got him some tickets to the last couple of days, the practice round today and tomorrow. And yeah, crazy story, just kind of how it all played out. But nice to finally meet him in person, and pretty funny. I got a lot of questions about it today at the course, and but nice to kind of be able to put us both together and celebrate an unbelievable day at Augusta National.
You came on with us a month or so ago, 2 months ago, and we got into it. But I said that because you didn't realize why it was such a popular story. And I said, man, you are living the dream of every guy who plays at the local country club. And you have the ability with the invitation to not just play, but drive down Magnolia Lane and the whole thing and the history behind it. Is it from where you are in the professional ranks versus where Chad and I would be in the foursome of the round robin tournament here? What's it like knowing, hey, I've qualified, I'm going back to Augusta?
It's pretty. I mean, obviously, you understand that making East Lake is a huge goal to start the year. Kind of the end all be all with what we're doing with the PGA Tour and the FedEx Cup. But just you realize the significance of it, of being able to plan your schedule. I've never been able to do that. This is my 13th year on the PGA Tour, and understanding how do you kind of work your way around major championships and stuff. And it's pretty interesting to see and kind of understand why guys have been so successful. These pictures bring back a lot of memories. A little bit different guy on the course these days.
This was nice 2014, right? We're looking at 2014 when you played.
Yeah. Didn't play my best there, but game sort of rounding in form, saw some nice things. My record didn't really show it in Austin, but definitely saw some things working in the right direction. The right time of year to start we're getting in major championship season. So excited to get out there and play this week.
So I'm sure Chad and I think Chad would think the same way. If we qualified, we'd be like, okay, this is going to be awesome, but I've got to act like I've been here before. The guy you saw you in 2014, as you're walking through and you're going through the mechanics of preparing for the first round, right? What's it like? And what's something that you'll definitely turn your head for and be like, okay, I'm fanning out on this. I'm not just participating in a random tournament.
I think it's probably the most well-known golf course on planet Earth. I mean, you can make an argument, whatever, but I played on Sunday afternoon with Taylor Moore, who's a first-timer. He won Valspar a couple weeks ago, and it's the first time he'd ever been there. And I told him walking down, I said, man, this is my third Masters. I'm by no means a veteran, but I said, there is a part of you that I said, take an opportunity to enjoy it and understand what it took you to get the opportunity to play and compete here. And I think just a happy balance between that. And my caddy was laughing at me on Sunday. He said, we're only going to play 9 holes today. I said, yeah, we're going to play 9 today and kind of work our way into the week. He's like, man, he said, I don't know if I just beat it out of you or whatever, but he said the old guy would have tried to convince me to play 36 holes. You got unfettered access to Augusta National on a 70-degree day in April. Like, let's play as much as we can. So I've definitely gotten older and hopefully more mature in understanding what it takes to kind of balance your way throughout a week. But I mean, anytime you get an opportunity to play, compete, be on the grounds is a special day and something that's definitely not taken for granted.
Well, for us spectators that are at home watching, Hutton mentioned this is a big week for us. You watch the national championship game in college basketball tonight, then you got a couple days, and then you watch the Masters on Thursday. Very different week for you, though, playing in this event. Scott, can you walk us through what this week is like, when you're going to find out your tee time and pairing tomorrow? Is there a specific time? What does the rest of the week look like as you build up to Thursday?
I mean, being that the field's smaller, you kind of know a window of when your tee times are. So you just sort of try to mimic a little bit. Like I played the back nine today on what would kind of be, my quote unquote early day, kind of mimicking a little bit of that overcast. And they have some magic buttons around here. They can make the course kind of play however they want, and they're gonna have to battle some weather for some course conditions to get it probably how they would like it to play. So hopefully, we can see some positive change in the forecast. Right now, it doesn't look great over the weekend, but everyone's going to have to deal with it. But I think more or less just to try to make sure you're ready to go on Thursday, check all the boxes, understand there's no surprises, but the course is right in front of you, and it's about execution, kind of manage your emotions. And, when you get out of position, having some discipline to get yourself back in the right position and not take on too much. But there's not a whole lot of, I'm not saying there's obviously experience that plays a lot into guys that have had success here a lot, but it is right in front of you. And, there's some nuance here and there as far as how to play certain shots and certain ways to be. And there's a lot of different opinion, a lot of different things, but for the most part, do your work, make sure you're shored up in all the areas. And, at the end of the day, you got a good game plan, trust what you're doing, and manage your emotions for 4 days, and anything can happen.
Scott, have you had a chance to watch any or all of the Netflix series, Full Swing? And have you encountered anyone mic'd up for that, or any moments where you're thinking, okay, I may be on one of these future episodes?
No, we had an interesting moment in Delaware. We had a guy that got a little overzealous with his access in the locker room. Between myself, Xander, and Patrick Cantlay, and Xander and I were sort of unaware that it was taking place, and Patrick made sure to make the guy very aware that none of us had signed off to be filmed. And it's sort of in the locker room, and guys, nothing like for whatever, just hanging around. We're talking about the course, tournament, whatever, and the guy sort of kind of overshot a little bit and tried to put himself in a situation more or less you shouldn't be. And Patrick stuck his nose in there and it's like, hey, man, you realize you're not where you're supposed to be here. And the guy apologized and was very nice about it. But I haven't had any experience with that whatsoever. And I didn't really watch. I watched the episode with Joel and Lana. They're friends of ours, and I thought it was awesome. But I haven't watched the whole series.
The Joel Damon episode was my favorite. Is your understanding these guys get paid on top of it to have an episode dedicated to them, or is it just something they do in cooperation with PGA Tour and Netflix?
I have no idea. If I was going to give them that amount of my time, I hope there would be some financial incentive.
I would hope so too, yeah. I didn't know if it was something through the PGA or through Netflix on it, though, is how they're getting paid.
I have no idea. I mean, that's maybe a little bit above my pay grade. I was not approached.
Ask Joel and get back to us since you're buddies with him and his
Scott,
wife.
I'm envisioning, was it like NFL films behind the bench with like a boom mic in your conversation, or was he even was it worse than that?
Or was it just a lone cameraman with one camera just right there in your conversation?
No, he was filming some guys that were in a different part, and more or less just kind of, I mean, you got a guy that's leading and then two guys that are chasing him. For me, I mean, those guys were both locked in the Tour Championship, but for me, that was going to be the biggest round of the year for me, the most important, and the round that propelled me into Atlanta to have the opportunity to be even talking to you guys today about playing in the Masters. And he's just, trying to get a little scoop on whatever. Who knows what we were talking about? Nothing life-changing by any means, but just sort of assured the guy that, and he was very well aware that he was doing something he wasn't supposed to. So
probably discussing bourbon or something. Scott Stallings with us here on Hot Mic. All right, I'm going to go rapid fire with you a bit. Is the checklist for what you need out of 9 holes on a practice round, is it the same for what you would do on any tournament and the mannerisms that you would go about trying to figure these things out? And give us 1 or 2 things that you specifically needed to find out year in and year out with this course being your 3rd time. Which hole and why?
I think I played the back today and just using like situational awareness on 13 and 15, just with the new tee boxes and the lengthening of the holes and the predominant wind that we're going to see for the first couple days. Like you're going to not see a lot of guys have an opportunity to go for the green, especially with the new teeing area, and more than likely how soft the fairways are going to play with some rain that we're going to get over the next couple days. So just more kind of understanding like that if when like the pins here and just try to manage it because there's a lot of opportunity with 13 to play shots in areas that probably just the general person being out there would try to understand why we're doing what we're doing. For instance, like a front left pin, trying to shoot it up there towards 14T where you can, kind of change your angle a little bit where you're kind of hitting into kind of any opportunity you have to hit it uphill at Augusta National into the greens is a positive thing instead of the green trying to go away from you and sort of make the hills and undulations work for you, not against you. And that's a perfect example. And we did the same thing on 15. Trying to find that one spot that I felt comfortable to all the pins and, went around and I was getting heckled today because I never hit it at the pin on 15. I was hitting it left and right and everything. And guy was like, man, you are hitting terrible wedges. I was like, the pin is completely irrelevant to practice day. And I think that's my caddy finally said, we're not hitting at the pin.
That is a very – I was surprised the first time I went to a practice round there and how little guys will actually putt out on the greens. They'll putt everywhere but at the hole.
Yeah, I hit a good shot into 11 today. I hit 6-iron into 11 about, 8 or 10 feet. And I just picked it up and this guy was like, you're not going to putt that? I was like, the pin's nowhere near there. like the pin will never be there again. So
I love that you answer the guy at least, though. Most people just keep walking. Yeah. At least you give him an answer, and now he's a little bit more educated. It's perfect.
Yeah, more or less. His guy's like, oh, man, this guy's going to make a birdie. It's like, yeah, that doesn't do me any good today.
Yeah.
Questions I'm sure that you think are stupid, but I'm very curious about. Is your wardrobe already mapped out?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
The Noble crew has put some stuff together for me, and we're early in the phase of our apparel.
Do they give you options?
So
okay, they do.
Yeah, they gave me some options. So nothing too outlandish. Our shoes that we're wearing out there are pretty cool, but
do you often veto?
Pretty
Scott?
toned down.
If you're given options of what to wear, are you a guy who frequently vetoes the options, or are you pretty agreeable to whatever they put in front of you?
I actually used this term. No, it was the Players Championship. I was an Under Armour guy for a while, and I just was like, I don't think and this is before my body change and, my life kind of got cleaned up a little bit as far as my overall aesthetics of the way I looked in certain outfits. And I just never really figured I was a white pants guy. And Marty Hackle, the guy that, rates everyone's outfit at the Players Championship, I was about 250 pounds hitting this ball out of this fairway bunker, and there was just a lot of me out in the world. And I finally sent this picture to the Under Armour girl that was like doing our stuff, and I was like, I think this hopefully will get me out of white pants forever. And I have yet to wear another pair of white pants since that day. So that's probably it for me.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, you lost, 55 pounds?
I think with the weight loss, you should bring the white pants back now, Scott. This is a great opportunity at Augusta National to bring those things back.
No, those things, I think I burned every pair I had.
Coolest Augusta National Golf Club member?
There's a bunch of them. I'm very fortunate to have an opportunity to have a playing partner at Pebble Beach. It's a member, Egon Durbin. And, man, he's just been very kind. Bill Rhodes, the AutoZone CEO, is a member, and both of them were very kind to take me on a couple trips with some friends of mine late in the fall and, kind of give some friends and family a chance to experience it sort of behind the curtain a little bit. And I just think that it's a truly special place that they feel very fortunate to be a representative of and like to share it with people that are, like to do the right thing and, want to be good stewards of the opportunity to experience any time there.
Do you know what the cap is on membership at Augusta National?
I think it's 300. 300 maybe?
I have no idea. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on Augusta National or any way, shape, and form, but all my experiences have been great. And obviously can't say more about how excited I am to play this week.
Okay, help me here. Hypothetical. Final round pairing on Sunday. First to make the cut, but then to get within a range for you of the leaderboard of right at the top. What's that going to feel like? Have you thought about it?
I don't think I've ever thought about it. I think I've thought about some certain scenarios, certain shots on the back nine as far as that same thing, hypotheticals, if-then statements, kind of working my way into a spot of where, what I would feel truly comfortable doing and whatever. And, but, when the world gets going fast and the lights get bright, everything's a little bit different. But that same thing, like I said before, managing expectations and emotions and going out there and execute to the best of your ability. Like, what you have to do. And, your game feels right. It's all about trying to do that, like the little things that go a long way.
We're going to keep up with the leaderboards, and obviously we'll update everyone where Scott is. Also, what could be weird, I don't think it will be for you in this situation, but who knows if you get the right pairing, you could represent the PGA against a Live Tour member in the final round.
I could completely care less about that. Those guys are in the right to be.
Of course,
those guys are in the right to be here, and I'll let the media and all the people do that kind of stuff.
I haven't even thought about it when I've seen them.
It does feel like, though, the PGA, not just players. I think most players have the same response you would have, Scott, but I feel like the PGA has even lightened the stance a little bit here in recent months. At least it's not nearly as loud as it was about the animosity that was there from the PGA towards the Live Tour. Do you sense the same, or is it all about the same as it was in the beginning?
I honestly haven't even given it a thought. I talked to probably 7 or 8 Live guys today, and I never even thought about it. Just some guys I hadn't seen before. I got some buddies that caddy for some guys that I've grew up playing mini tours with and stuff like that talked to for quite a bit, and they're trying to do the same job we are, go out and prepare and have an opportunity to be there on Sunday. And what happens on the outside, everyone else can deal with that stuff.
I've told you before, last time you were on with us with the other Stallings, you're playing the best golf of your life, the consistent stretch you've been on. Can't wait to follow it this week, man. And you're very cool to join us on the Monday of the tournament as you're preparing mentally and physically for it right now. So you're the man. And tell Scott Stallings 2.0 and his wife we said hello at the. Did he bring his wife?
He did.
Okay.
He did.
I was going to say, did he bring a friend or his wife? Yeah, great.
I met them last night.
Awesome.
Hey, tell the Netflix camera guy that's right behind you right now, too, that we said hello. Yeah. I saw him peeking in the shot earlier. Probably didn't even know he was there, but tell him we said hello.
I appreciate it, man. I hope you guys have a great week, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for everything, man. Scott Stallings, one of our favorite guests there, and that is awesome. Playing in his 3rd Masters, and here we go. Now, sometimes the weather can actually benefit certain players. I think it will him too. With the rainy conditions.
It's one of those, Hutton, we've been there, but you watch it and you get close to those guys teeing off.
It's a bucket list moment.
It's not just the venue. It's anytime you're in a really cool spot. You go to a great rock concert or whatever, and you look up on stage and you think, imagine being them.
Yeah.
When you see someone tee off at Augusta National, I think, now imagine being Scott Stallings or anyone else when your name is announced and the butterflies in your stomach you must feel when you walk up there to tee off in front of that many people at Augusta National. It is one of those detached moments that you think about and try to transport yourself to them, and it's hard to even fathom.
And the reason
that's why we love having Scott on to talk about it.
And I brought up the wardrobe question because every player has to think about Sunday, because you have to go through your sponsorships and pick out what would pair well with the green jacket. It's all mapped out. And I love the drama behind it too. If you've never been to Augusta National for a practice round, that's the time of the week to go. Go there first for a practice round, then take in one of the rounds of the tournament, because TV does not do it justice at all with that course. Chad, TV is made for the NCAA tournament, right? The tournament itself, the bracket, tailor-made for what CBS and Turner, and they do a great job with it. There is one thing that I think the perception will be out of the tournament we just watched, that I'm siding with Dan Hurley on when we come back. That's next on Hot Mic.
For me as a player, the Dallas Greens and John Vukovic of the world, I always excelled playing for because I did my job, I prepared, and they never lied to me. So when I did something stupid, and it trickled down, and I think one of the things that I don't know if he remembers this, but it trickled down to players like Dave, because in 1993, everybody remembers we were in the postseason against the Braves and the Blue Jays, and one of the games in Atlanta, I put a towel over my head when Mitch came in to pitch. And then I did it, I think, the next day, and the national media caught on to it, and they all thought it was funny, ha. And it was me just going, it's hard to, I didn't think for a second about the ramifications or implications or what it looked like. And Dave came to me in the clubhouse, and he said, "Hey, man, you can't do that." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Dude, you're showing up a teammate." And it hit me like a ton of bricks when he said that. And I'll never forget that conversation. I went immediately from that conversation over to Mitch's locker and apologized profusely. And he was like, "No, don't worry about it, dude. I couldn't watch myself pitch either." But that was the kind of old school thing that wouldn't happen today.
Right.
It would not happen today. And I'll tell you what, though, in winning clubhouses, it does happen.
Yeah.
Be assured that today's teams, yes, players are different. The world is different. Society's different. But in winning clubhouses, those conversations still take place.
They do.
Yes, they have to. They have to. And you'll hear, I always kind of chuckled about the fact that the media goes crazy when they hear about a fight in the clubhouse. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's weekly. That's how it works. When you put 25 alpha males in the same room, from the Dominican, from the all Caribbean islands, South America, all over the world, and you throw them into a room, if they're not winning, people are going to get punched. That's just the way it happens. Or if they're not fighting, then they suck, because
or they don't care. I mean,
right, that's it. Right.
You care about winning, and you have the right group of guys, and there's no issues in the clubhouse, something's wrong.
Right.
And we found that out,
Yeah.
Glad you're with us. 6th and Peabody, our location. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow on the Outkick Network. Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine on tap. Chad, Dan Hurley's right, and I jumped on this bandwagon the minute I saw the buys in the tournament and the matchups that we would have if we saw the NCAA expand the tournament to 90 teams. Had that been this year, based on what the committee was telling us. He's saying that, hey, on tournament expansion, I think it's fine the way it is. I think it's a privilege to play in this tournament, not a right. He says the power conference teams, they game the numbers, and he doesn't like mid-majors getting squeezed out. I don't think expanding is a good idea. I think the proponents for this, which includes this committee that Greg Sankey's a part of, and that they're pushing to have 25% of participating teams in all sports make the postseason. Clearly, it's a money grab in this case. And I think what will be pointed to from this specific tournament to their favor, at least they're going to try to twist it that way, are the teams that made deep runs in the tournament that you didn't really know about. It's not the traditional powerhouses. Oh, we can have more of these if we add more teams. It'll be great. The problem with that is, based on the models I've seen, those Cinderella stories are going to face off in the first round. We would see Fairleigh Dickinson against Mississippi State because the teams at the top of the bracket are going to get a first-round bye. And essentially, you'll have a lot of the first four matchups to play into the field of 64 for that opening round. If that's the case, it defeats the purpose of what they've built and what is perfect already.
So Jim Larinaga had the opposite stance on this, and he said, and I quote, "The NCAA has 360 Division I teams and only 68 make the dance. The whole mission is to give the student athlete a great experience. Well, there is no greater experience for a college basketball player than to compete in March Madness, and yet we only have 68 teams out of 363. That's 18%. Let's increase it. Let's go to 96. I mostly agree with what you're saying, Hutton. I think there is a way for them to justify a money grab by using math. Right? Like this is the way to logically say what they're really doing. We know what they're doing.
Right.
It's more money for them to do it. But they can justify it by saying we've added so many teams to Division I that the 68 is outdated. So that's only 18% of the entire classification. Let's up it to it's to make more money. We know that. Anyone with a brain knows that that's what they really want. But I do think they make some interesting points about the math of it, that you've added teams, so why not add teams to the tournament also? And that does make sense.
Well,
I'm typically one that thinks, well, I like playoff games. So if you give me another playoff game, I'm typically not going to argue with it. In pro sports, I generally feel the same about the NCAA tournament. I just love this tournament so much that I'm opposed to the idea of changing the construct of it that we see every year with 68 teams. And it's going to take some getting used to with those earlier first-round games to get from 90 down to 68.
Well, but also, too, like the report that we referenced a while back.
96.
Yeah, 96. And I say a while back, a few weeks ago. The vast majority of the expansion would be from the Power 6 conferences in college basketball. It wouldn't be from the quote-unquote mid-majors. So the one or two bid leagues, for the most part, stay the one or two bid leagues because you'd have the watered-down middle of all of the major conferences work their way into the tournament based on a conference tournament run, per se, right? That was another argument for me that I bought into, saying, yeah, we don't need the expansion if all we're going to see. I mean, Hurley's pointing to the mid-majors that they're getting the shaft here because the power schools, the power conferences, are pushing numbers based on scheduling. Whatever you want to point to, fine. But from the power chair, which is the Power 6, that can schedule different things, and then the conference actually helps them, even if you lose sometimes. That's not the case for the teams that are winning 30 games a year and can't necessarily make their case for why they should be in the field of 68.
Perfect case scenario to me expand it to 96. That's 28 more teams. You have to put in a stipulation that, let's say it's 18 and 10. 18 comes from mid to low major of those non-automatic qualifiers, those invited guests, and 10 come from power conferences. Whatever the breakout is, I'm saying you basically you have to put in the rules of it. We're not just going to take every team from the bottom of the power conferences. It's going to be a smaller amount. Now, when you put 10 other teams from the Power 5 in, you're getting a lot of the teams, right? Anyone who was under consideration would have made it this year.
The entire Big 12 would have made it this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you finished last in the conference that.
But that's why you have to shrink the number of Power 5 to get in.
Chad, the WWE and the UFC, they're joining forces per reports. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into Outkick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, the bold taste of a Southern legend.
Glad you're with us, and just like that, the final hour is here on this Monday edition. Hutton and Withrow, hot mic across the Outkick network. Glad you're with us. If you're listening to this great radio partner or streaming us at the Outkick channel on YouTube or at Outkick.com. Chad, WrestleMania is complete. UFC, never been bigger.
You watched some of WrestleMania last night.
I saw some highlights.
Were you
Yeah,
impressed?
I went and watched our guy, Seth Rollins.
Yeah. Awesome dude to talk to at the Super Bowl.
Since we met with him at the Super Bowl in Radio Row, and he was setting up that match with Logan Paul. It was cool. What amazes me is how many people they pack into these stadiums. They had like 120,000 over the 2 days that they did this on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah,
it is a week-long event. It's a moment, not a match, I guess, is the way to term this. And, now it's, for the most part, you don't have many of these guys that are trying to stay in character, which make them more human in their responses with press conferences. They're doing press conferences after this. And the press corps there asking questions about the business, and you're hearing the psychology of things. And now the money of things. UFC, owned by Endeavor. Endeavor is also purchasing the WWE, and combined, the company is going to, with UFC and WWE combined, create $21.4 billion as part of their entertainment company, their sports entertainment company through Endeavor. And it's WWE is publicly traded, and now you have Endeavor housing both UFC and WWE.
Well, if you're curious about the breakdown, which one is more valuable, it's a little over $12 billion for UFC and $9 billion for WWE. So UFC is the more valuable of the two properties with this combination. I think this is great for both brands.
Yeah.
They are simply following in line with what is media business today, and that is to join forces. Everyone join hands, sing Kumbaya, and let's get the biggest brands in the world and put them together and have these monster companies with what Disney's done, what you've seen a lot of other companies do. They're putting everything they can together. And I think this is just another example with WWE and UFC. I like the split between scripted and unscripted sports and entertainment. I think it's smart to have two different branches of combat sports, one scripted, one unscripted. Could boxing eventually fold up into this also and be a third part of it? Maybe. Nick Khan, who is the president of the merger, the WWE CEO, who's now going to be the president, CEO.
And was a massive agent beforehand.
Yeah, after all this merged. He spoke with Bobby Barack at Outkick. Really good interview at the site. And he talks about specifically what this can do for international media rights. And Hutton, I think that's the biggest part of it. They can now combine forces and go and negotiate for international television, pay-per-view, everything, that you're getting both with one company, with one deal in different parts of the world.
And what's interesting,
and that's what's going to be very profitable for them.
Yeah, from a business stance, both companies within the last 3 or 4 years took their pay-per-view product exclusive to the streaming service and where they house their streaming services. So all of the UFC pay-per-views are through ESPN Plus. And ESPN Plus charges $80 or $90 for that. And you also have through Peacock the ability to watch WrestleMania. You can't get that on pay-per-view through like DirecTV, the old school means of things. And the companies that worked together in the past, you had Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey certainly have done both. And I mean, the year that Brock was in UFC and fighting for a title, Undertaker's there setting up a storyline with Brock Lesnar for WrestleMania. I can't remember when that was. It was in the last decade. So it's a no-brainer in terms of a partnership here. And here's the other thing to consider. Both of these companies refused to be shut down during COVID. They found a way. They took everything in-house and still brought in the fan base and grew their fan base because
people would stay at home and watch.
Well,
and they grew their fan base from
there
home.
wasn't much to watch if you wanted a sport.
They were
if you
doing
wanted
it.
to bet. And Dana White took everything and put it into the training complex in Vegas, and they've been running shows out of there, and they're they're not doing that. They're still running shows out of there, but they're also getting back into the arenas for the non-pay-per-view, the non-UFC cards. And WWE hit the road, 2 years ago? A year and a half ago now, I believe, to get back out.
They were going to go, wasn't there talk they were going to go to an island at one point, too?
They did that. Yeah,
for
Fight
UFC?
Island.
Yeah, they had a Fight Island. I remember
Island
that.
in Abu Dhabi.
It's remarkable to me that when you look at Disney, they can only acquire so much more because there's monopoly controls in our country, right?
Sure.
Everything they do is going to be combed over because they own so much. But Khan and WWE and Dana White and UFC did talk to Disney about a possible acquisition also. They end up going with someone else. But I found this one answer interesting from Bobby Barack's piece at Outkick, an answer from Khan about simple question. Where is WWE in 5 years? And he says, and I quote, "We think we have an untapped scripted and unscripted opportunity in the intellectual property space. Characters like The Undertaker and Andre the Giant. I'm not sure that every comic book fan was familiar with Black Panther, but certainly every movie fan is now. We want that for our characters. So if we do it with the right partners in the right spirit, we think that we have something that is largely untapped." So my mind immediately went to, he's mentioning Black Panther, which is a product of Marvel. Marvel owned by Disney. So was that part of the negotiation where you could use intellectual property? I know he's talking about making his own, with the likes of Andre the Giant, Undertaker, which WWE did successfully. But what's to stop WWE from partnering with these long-standing media brands and using some of their IP and having crossover into wrestling with some of them? An example would be there could be a Black Panther wrestler if Disney Marvel owned WWE.
Yeah, but I mean, how many characters could you bring back with The Rock and the characters he's played? I mean, again,
for sure.
But like John Cena's gone on Stern and talked about how Vince McMahon owns the rights to his name. He gets profit anytime Cena gets profit off of his name, and that is his God-given name. And he was like,
so it's smart to have a different character.
Well, no, but he was like, look, I'm where I am because of him. So he can have a piece of the pie or whatever. And they've already got their own, I believe they have their own production company, don't they? WWE?
Yeah.
So who knows where this is headed?
It got my mind wondering about media partnerships and who they could partner with, and could there be crossover with comic book heroes, with movie star, with movie characters in the past, with a lot of things that could then be WWE characters.
Yeah.
That's outside of their own family currently.
They had $1.3 billion in revenue, WWE, last year. And within the first 2 months of this year, they had 7.5 billion digital and social media views in January and February combined as a company. So, I mean, that's, and they've got Logan Paul now, who's signed a contract with WWE. You have Jake Paul, who hates Dana White, so you can build that together, because Dana hates him but talks about him all the time because Jake talks back, and that builds interest in the UFC product, whether or not they're making money off of each other or not. They eventually will. I'm very intrigued by it.
Yeah, and Khan said this WrestleMania, most sales, sponsorship, ticket revenue, merchandise sales for any WWE event ever was this past weekend. And I don't know how they're calculating all this.
Well, because it's 2 nights now.
Yes, but they also said the most people watched ever. And I'm sure that's across all platforms. They could possibly consume a second of it.
Yeah.
That they can point to that. Because I don't watch it and think, it's not, WWE, while profitable, is not right now a part of mainstream culture the way it was in the late 80s when Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and then The Undertaker was starting, or the Attitude Era. It was way more mainstream culture then than it is now with their WWE superstars of today.
No question.
So while I'm sure he's telling the truth with this stuff.
Yeah.
They're still looking for a next level with all of this. And there is a next level to reach.
Boatload of money coming in with their TV contracts and other things too. So the partnership, they're spending billions, and I'm pretty sure Endeavor bought UFC for $4 billion, like 5-6 years ago now. Was it that long ago? And they're worth what? You said 13?
Well, 21 all told. The two together. Oh no, you're talking about just it's
UFC.
It's 12 and change.
Yeah, Endeavor had
already bought. I want to say it was
And they were worth. They bought UFC for $4 billion,
tripled.
and that was the highest bidder then, which is crazy.
And it's already tripled in value.
Yeah. Yep. And they don't have a script. You can try to build up a championship fighter, and if he loses, Colby Covington, they want him to fight McGregor later this year. But if he loses, then he's not. If McGregor doesn't have the belt,
it's not as profitable for them.
Yeah, you can try to pair them up, but it doesn't always go that way. Chad, Jalen Carter. He's not going to visit with teams, meet with teams out of Georgia within the top. He was top player, top defensive player. Some of the offseason things that have gone on, including what happened with the car accident that took the lives of 2 people, former teammate, former staff member of his at Georgia. He was racing up next to them on camera, had initially told police that he was a mile away when the accident occurred, when he wasn't. And also reports that he was out of shape at the Georgia Pro Day. He couldn't do the workouts. He was breathing heavily. Drew Rosenhaus is his agent. He's saying Jalen's not going to meet with teams that are drafting outside of the top 10. This is not unusual. If you're how many teams do we think Trevor Lawrence met with, for instance, that were drafting outside of the top 10? This is a guy that is going to fall to someone because I think Henry is going to be drafted first. And then you have Will Anderson, will be drafted, the first defensive player drafted, I'm saying. And then you have Carter slide because all of the chase is on for the quarterbacks. So based on what I'm saying, I think he's outside the top 5. But from there, the price tag to go get him, he would be number 1 on my board if I don't need a QB and I have best available player. Rosenhaus is right here, and there are a handful of players that really don't have to visit in person, city to city, with all of these different teams whenever they're selecting 15th, 16th, 17th, 12th even. I don't think that this is a slide at the league, and I think Carter, regardless of what has gone on, I think a team is going to take him because he's so good.
I don't think the legal stuff with the racing and leaving the scene is going to hurt him that much. I think the out-of-shape stuff may hurt him a little bit. But the only mistake I'd say he's making is, what if someone traded into the top 10 to get him?
Well, but
if there's someone that's saying, I want to meet with him because we like him enough on film,
chances
that
are
there's a chance we could trade up a few spots if we feel like that's what we have to do to get him. So please meet with us. That would be the one mistake you could make.
But I think if you're doing that, you've already made the decision you're going to get him, if you can, like based on the price tag it would take to go get him. Because I don't think you would want to show your hand by meeting with him now if you're picking 16th, 17th, and I'm just picking a random number, that you're interested in moving up, because then the team that would be trading out, well, the other team that wants to move up with him to draft him would know who the competition would be. And then the price tag only goes up from there when you can be the quiet bidder, already know that you're going to move up and draft the guy that you have number 1 on your board. And it can realistically say that based on what we've seen him do at Georgia. So I think if you're trading in, I understand what you're saying. I think you've already met with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to go top 10. I feel confident in saying that. I just, given everything, maybe not the smartest to just shut things down and play it as normal if you're Rosenhaus. But they're probably thinking, we can't show any sweat here. We need to play it as normal because we feel you're normal and fine and not in any trouble. So we got to play it like we normally would. And I can see both sides.
He probably knows the teams that are going to draft him.
Yeah, you don't want to look desperate.
Right? The teams that have told Rosenhaus, if he's there, we're taking him. And with him, you can believe that. Not out of the realm of possibility. There's a report out, and it's just, I say report, I think it's more opinion, that Will Levis has fallen down the first round grades, quote unquote, on where quarterbacks are stacked in some of these draft rooms. None of these sources are named, but there are a handful of teams, Chad, that have Hendon Hooker ahead of both Will Levis and Richardson. You buy both?
I think he should be. I don't buy that he's ahead of Richardson.
Okay. Because if he's ahead of Richardson, that means he's like a top 10 pick.
We'll know on draft night. Yeah. I think there's a chance he goes in the top 10. I read today that there is a consensus amongst GMs. There's no way he's not a first-round pick.
I'm buying that now.
That he is definitely in the first round.
I'm buying that he's a first-round pick now.
I am too. I still think it's a way outside the box that he'd be top 10, but it's possible.
I mean, by the way, there are 31 picks in the first round this year because the Dolphins don't have theirs. But
it's amazing, by the way, how many people are crushing Will Levis over his body picks, and how guys who are all rocked up at quarterback typically aren't very good. And I'm thinking, boy, talk about your ultimate backfire for some bathroom selfies.
But he also took some selfies of his injury, like when he was rehabbing, and like how his body looked. Then I'm thinking, just dude,
you said it earlier about basketball players knowing Caitlin Clark going to the free throw line on Friday night. There was no doubt she had no emotion in her face. You
just know
she walked up there and drained it 4 straight times. Just machine-like.
Joe Burrow's tweeting out a picture of a cigar.
I watch Will Levis, and it's not even like the swag. There's something missing. Watch the guy's facial expressions, and watch the guy when they lose.
You're saying he drives a big truck.
There's something going on. Maybe. But the mayonnaise thing that he talks about, the bathroom selfies.
I'm with you, man.
There's something lacking. I don't know what it is.
Aside from that.
And there's way too many Kentucky fans that try to make excuses for some of the poor performances, and I'm thinking, you don't have to go out of your way to do that.
But it's not
for the guys who are no doubt guys.
But it's not just Kentucky fans making those excuses. It's Mel Kiper.
Well, Uncle Mel, Will's uncle, he's got also a vested interest.
What do we say? The interceptions, 7 or 8 of those aren't on him, and then it doesn't matter the score. I think the Tennessee game was brought up.
Hutton, you lose by 10 or you lose by 40. I mean, what does that matter? Okay.
Keep in mind, this is in January.
He was saying some of the interceptions were he was behind by 10, so he just started throwing it to the other team, trying to make something happen. So who cares?
In January 26th, he had Will Levis number 1 on his draft board. January 26th. And I ranted on this.
What is he now?
This is, I don't know where he is now. I can look it up specifically.
I'll find it.
I ran on this. The headlines with the draft are extremely cyclical, where you have the build-up right after the season, the national championship game, and everything in between. You then have the NFL Combine, where some guys work out, some guys don't, and you have the workout warriors who climb the ladder. And then you have the drop, which provides the drama of building up a player through the perception and the eyes of the media, not the teams, for the first round and where they're going to go. Because right now, the drama is around the first 5 or 6 picks. And what will be created over the next couple of weeks with Will Levis and Hendon Hooker is how many teams, after the 3 quarterbacks go, are interested in those 2 guys. How many quarterbacks were we talking about this time last year? 3, 4?
Yeah, really the one
was
the big one.
No, Malik Willis was a first-round pick as of this time last year. As of today last year. Mox had him going first round. He went third round. And that's my point. It ended up being Kenny Pickett and no one. And Levis is a good quarterback. I always have to preface everything I say by saying I don't want to rip the guy because I think he's a good quarterback. I just don't think he's worth the hype, and I think this is the realization because people are hearing what teams actually see and what they've evaluated, and they're being asked to compare him with the top picks in the draft. And I don't think the teams are saying, yeah, he's a second-round guy. They're saying he's not a top 10 pick. They're echoing what you and I have been saying since November when the first mocks came out for the April's draft, which is the second season of the National Football League.
I think what happened is they just met him. I mean,
maybe.
I think, honestly, they're probably listening to other people and not watching the games he played and then just saying, boy, he physically looks – and then I think people are just figuring out what we already knew.
Maybe so.
He also might go second overall. I mean, we don't know, right? Someone may love him. No, Houston won't do it.
Indy at 4?
Yes. Indy's that dumb.
Coming up, Glenn Guilbeau joins us live from Houston. National Championship tips off this evening. We preview the matchup with Glenn of Outkick.com next on Hot Mic.
I think girls with hairy armpits should be eradicated from the face of this earth.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Hottest take is that In-N-Out is overrated.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because their French fries taste like cardboard, and they get soggy too quick if you get them animal style, and their burgers are just like always dry. So
It's gross.
Hot dog is not a sandwich
Why not?
because it's not two separate pieces of bread.
What's your hottest take?
Normalize blacking out. ChatGPT is going to take over the world.
Hate Duke University. I hope they never win a game in the history of life. I hate everything about them. That's my take.
Why is that your hot take? Why do you feel so strongly about that?
Air of arrogance amongst people I'm friends with, and I want to punch them in the face often.
I believe there shouldn't be any weight classes in fighting, UFC, boxing, just to let the best fighter fight.
I'm a Packers fan. I think it'd be great if Aaron Rodgers leaves. It'd be really funny if he demanded all this stuff from the Jets and then stayed. LeBron James is not the go to basketball.
My hot take is that the University of Tennessee is hot trash, and so is the SEC. Go Big Ten.
I hate when people slow down when it's a green light and they think it's going to turn yellow. So they slow down anticipating that it's going to turn like red.
People do that?
Yeah, at least in Canada.
He's from Canada. I asked people from Canada for their hot takes. They don't have any. They don't have any.
I'm not a controversial person. To each their own, I guess.
Hot takes from Canada. Snapchat is cringy. Do not ask for my Snapchat if you are over 18 years old.
I think a celebrity that got canceled and shouldn't have is Hayley Williams from Paramore, simply because she said a derogatory term in her song Misery Business from like 15 years ago. 15 years later, they decide she's a criminal? I don't know about that.
I think the Beatles are overrated.
I'm here in Nashville. My hot take is that country music sucks.
Taylor Swift is overrated.
Swift is better country, for sure.
Cowboy boots aren't cool.
We are far from the most racist country in the world. I'm so ready for the new president.
Here we go. Joe Biden is a terrible president. Trump 2024.
6th and Peabody, our location, streaming live at Outkick.com. Hot Mike, Hutton and Withrow. Glenn Gilbo also, you can read his work at Outkick.com. He joins us now from Houston, previewing tonight's championship matchup. It's San Diego State and UConn. I never would have predicted that. No one could have these two teams matching up. Glenn, you've covered many championship games over the years. What's the media attendance like? And overall, what's the fan buzz around the city of Houston for this?
Well, it's Houston's got the Astros, the defending champion Astros. They were in town this weekend against the White Sox. There's a lot of talk about that, but there was a lot of people here Saturday with the two Florida schools. But I got to say that most of the talk has been about the women's.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
I was at a popular steakhouse Friday night downtown Houston, Vic and Anthony's, and the whole place was rocking watching South Carolina get beat in the final moments. So it's been interesting because I've been writing about the women too. But that was a great game in the opener when Florida Atlantic got beat by San Diego State on the buzzer beater. That was about as good a game as you could see. And maybe tonight's game will be close too. I don't think so, though.
I'm curious, and I'm going to preview the matchup in a second. Glenn Gilbo with us. So in the college football playoff expansion, the first round is going to be on campus, right? We're going to see the home teams in that matchup, the higher seeds. But from the championship matchup from the Final Four, we won't see the Final Four at Madison Square Garden, for instance, because it holds 20,000 and not 80. What's the atmosphere comparison as you sit there and watch basketball in front of 75, 80,000 at NRG Stadium? And is there a way that they ever go away from it?
I don't think so. They just make too much money, selling the tickets, even if the crowd's not always there. But it was full Saturday. Yeah. The resale of the tickets has not been great in Houston. The women resales are much better, 6 times higher for the championship game tonight, $60 to like $360. But I don't think they're going to leave the big arenas. And it looks really wide open, but it's just as loud, and there's just as much atmosphere, I find. And you asked me how much media are here. Well, judging by where my seat is, I'm way behind the goal. So there's a lot of media here, as usual. And there's some media going back and forth to Dallas but for the women's too. But no, I do not think the men are going to leave the big arenas, and they're going to keep the neutral sites. And you brought up college football. That is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
When they expand the playoffs, not this season, but next season, and have those games on campus in the opening rounds. That's going to be really cool.
Well, and Glenn, you know quite a bit about that LSU program. I know you're not there covering it. You're at the men's Final Four, but what about the scene in Dallas where they're getting record television ratings? You got a little bit of controversy at the end of that game with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and just the job that Kim Mulkey has done in year 2, winning a national championship, first ever basketball national title at LSU.
I tell you, the Iowa win over South Carolina, and then LSU's win over Iowa, and Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I mean, 2 great players. It was exciting to watch both of those games, even though LSU in the end blew away Iowa. But I mean, everybody knows Kim Mulkey's a great coach. She won 3 titles at Baylor, and I thought it would take her at least 3 or 4 years to win one here at LSU, but she's already got it in her second year, and she inherited a team that won only 9 games, and obviously she was helped by the portal tremendously, but everybody else has the portal too. But she just did a masterful job and really shut down Caitlin Clark like no one had done. She scored 41 points in the last 2 tournament games coming into this. So, everybody was at LSU was kind of seeing who would win the first national championship, Kim Mulkey, Jay Johnson with the baseball team, or Brian Kelly with LSU. And Kim is off to the fast start, and you're probably going to see the baseball team in Omaha.
What did you make of the closing moments with the John Cena "you can't see me" gesture to Caitlin Clark?
Well, the thing that that I thought was over the top by Angel and was out of line was, you know, Caitlin trash talks, and I have that in my column this morning, and she does a lot of stuff too, but she was doing it during the game and real quick and kind of general toward the crowd or toward the LSU bench. Angel was right in Caitlin's face for about 20 seconds, and the game was over, you know, and I thought that was a little over the line, and you know, especially with the game being over, because usually, you know, you'll see that type trash talking and gesturing during the game, but once the game's over, you know, it's over, and they shake hands or whatever. And I thought it was a little much by Angel, but you know, it still didn't take away from a great night by LSU.
Watching San Diego State on TV, and the first time I really, you know, I'm not watching a lot of Aztecs basketball during the regular season, but I locked in with their game against Alabama, and what jumps out to me, it looks like a football team physically, wide, broad shoulders, very physically strong. What was it like watching them up close against FAU in that game, and what kind of chance do you give them of bringing that style to UConn and sort of bringing UConn to their level of how they want to play?
Well, they really just stuffed Alabama. Alabama really didn't have an option. You know, they didn't have anything to go to. They weren't used to playing that type of game, which was crazy because, you know, we all hear the SEC is so tough, but the SEC's kind of become more of a finesse league, really. And San Diego State is a brute of a team, and Florida Atlantic handled San Diego State's defense better than Alabama did, but San Diego State was stubborn as that game came down to the wire. They would not go away, and when they finally took the lead to win the game on the Lamont Butler jumper, that was the first lead they had since the first half. They were just hanging, and eventually they frustrated Florida Atlantic enough. But UConn plays the same way. You know, they wore down Miami, and they've worn down everybody they played really since February, and especially in the NCAA tournament. So I think you're going to see two teams that approach this the old school kind of Big Ten defense way with Dan Hurley and Brian Dutcher here. I think if the game goes San Diego State's way, it's going to be real tight, close, and defensively. But I think there's a chance UConn could blow them, could move away from them late in the game.
Glenn Guilbeau with us from Outkick.com there in Houston covering tonight's national championship matchup. Glenn, I always have to remind myself not to make too much of one result. But if San Diego State wins tonight, what does it ultimately mean? Does it mean something bigger than just, great run by some teams that, you know, made a push in March? Is it more than just a one-year thing? Is this a signal of where we can be with the portal and where teams like San Diego State and FAU can be with the portal?
Well, I think I don't think it's necessarily going to be a big signal that college basketball is changing, because the portal was in full effect last year, and you had nothing but blue bloods in New Orleans, North Carolina, Duke, Villanova, and Kansas. So, I mean, next year you could have 4 blue bloods in the Final Four. I think what it does is it gives the mid-major schools, the schools that aren't brand names, more of a chance to get there. But they've already been doing that. You know, Butler's been a player in the Final Four, national championship games. Gonzaga, you know, George Mason was in it back in 2006. So it's already happened. This just makes it gives more mid-majors, more of those no names or less familiar names a chance. So I think it just makes it great. Now, you know, I think people like the best of both worlds. They like the upsets in the early rounds, but then they kind of want the blue bloods in the Final Four. This year that didn't happen. You only really got one blue blood, but I think it's going to continue to be a good mix. So, I mean, I think it's the greatest postseason in sports, period, because of that golden mean of sometimes you get the big blue bloods, sometimes you get Cinderella.
Glenn, you had Alabama made it to where we thought they'd be, which is playing tonight. You'd be covering the Brandon Miller story. The fact that that's not a storyline is great for the 4 that were on display on Saturday in the championship game we have now. But beyond that, because you don't have to cover the Brandon Miller storyline as they try to go for a championship because they lost to this San Diego State team, is there a player or there could be a coach that you're like, man, I learned a lot. I'm really pulling for, a great storyline with this kid based on a situation I never would have realized had I've been covering Brandon Miller. I would sit and try to ponder that if I in any situation, knowing that, okay, good, so-and-so lost, I'm done with having to cover the police reports.
Sure. That story was dissipating somewhat anyway, but I think a lot of people, I think I was probably relieved too when they lost, because it made it more fun. You didn't have to deal with the baggage at Alabama, and not necessarily Brandon. Brandon was fine to deal with. It was the handlers at Alabama, the sports information department, the athletic department. That's what made it
the school
not
attorneys.
Fun. But I mean, I'm sorry?
The school attorneys that you mentioned.
But it was still a great team. I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the attorneys, yeah, for sure. But, Alabama was still a great team. But it is better when there's less controversy and less of a cloud around, when you get to the championship games, Final Four, college football playoff, whatever it is.
Glenn Guilbeau will be on the beat tonight for tonight's championship matchup between San Diego State and UConn. UConn has been a bear. So hard to beat, and I'm hoping the officials aren't the storyline tomorrow for all of us. Meaning, I hope San Diego State can play their game and make this a game. I'm not saying UConn loses if San Diego State plays their best, because UConn can certainly.
But maybe they can cover.
Run with anyone. No doubt.
7.5.
No
they
doubt.
Can play their game. Yeah,
no doubt, and it makes it more fun. To what Glenn's point is.
Yeah, I think UConn's about an 8-point favorite.
Yep.
Hopefully the officials won't inject themselves into the game as much as they did in the women's title game last night. And to answer your question earlier, I think Lamont Butler is really a great story, who hit the buzzer beater Saturday. Comes from a great family, and he only had 9 points in that game, but he's had 2 buzzer beaters on the season. So keep an eye on him if it comes down to the late seconds tonight.
Glenn, it was also one of the more calm buzzer beaters I've ever seen, and I was screaming at the TV to shoot it because it looked like no one was getting in position for the game-winning shot. And then just out of nowhere, 2 seconds left, he just calmly did a little step back and drained the shot. No problem at all. It looked like something that was going to have to be rushed and look terrible in the end, and he made it look smooth as silk.
Well, I always like it when the coach doesn't call a timeout right there. Nathan Mensah got the rebound. They went down the court. He decided not to call the timeout because so often you see him dribble down too much time, and then they throw it around. Nobody gets a good shot off. And Lamont, he moved to his right. He moved back to his left, and then he noticed, oh, hell, there's 2 seconds left. I better shoot. I mean, there was when you saw it live, you weren't sure if he got the shot off, but then he clearly got the shot off on the replay. But it was just a great natural play by Lamont, especially when he moved from side to side to kind of give him an opening. And great decision by Brian Dutcher, who had just said the day before, March is about the players. So he let it be about the players and didn't call a timeout.
Great work as always, man. We appreciate it, and enjoy the coverage tonight. We'll be logging on to Outkick for it.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Enjoy it.
There's
Thanks.
Glenn Guilbeau.
Appreciate it, Glenn.
Outkick.com with all of the SEC headlines and tonight's college basketball coverage. I've been doing great all weekend. Chad, Jim Nance's final game in the tournament.
Final tie to be handed
Final
out
tie.
tonight.
Although I tried to look this up.
I think he did away with it.
I thought he stopped giving that out.
I think people like us made fun of it enough to where he just said, okay, you know what?
I think so.
I'm taking my tie and going home. No more ties for anyone else.
But that was also around the same time frame where he was going through the separation, where it was learned through like court documents that he had a mural of himself in his home.
Yeah, there was a divorce proceeding that
and so then they tied that in with
he had like a life-size mural over his fireplace of just Jim Nance.
Which, again, like, whatever. But tying that into, I think the reason he did away was, I don't want to make this about me, so I'm just not going to do it anymore. Because that was the perception. I like the fact that he had the self-awareness to do that. Also,
Jim Nance seems like a super nice guy, by the way.
Absolutely.
Everyone I know you've met him before, but everyone I know that ever has come in contact with him. John McClain stories about him in Houston. So I don't want to act like he's a jerk or anything.
No.
He probably just sincerely looked at it and said, maybe this is a little self-referential, so I'm not going to do it anymore, right, with the tie. We still joke about it, though.
And he's doing it to take time back and give it to his family. That's part of it. And, I mean, I've never thought of Jim Nantz, the college basketball voice. It's always been the NFL or Augusta National.
Hello, friends.
So I think this hasn't been, like, over the top from this is Nantz's final run through the tournament. Ian Eagle's going to be great, too, in his replacement. I think they'll go over the top tonight for it, especially if it's like a 76-58 blowout. That's when they'll go over the top with the Nantz discussion from CBS.
In these moments, I kind of want tears. Like, I like it when they get a little bit emotional in the end. Was it Nick Faldo who also got very emotional in his last broadcast? I'm good with it. I think that it's going to be Bill Raftery and Grant Hill on the call with him. By the way, is Bill Raftery, he's just going to do this forever, I guess?
I guess.
I mean,
do whatever you want.
He's fine. Like, he hasn't fallen off at all. He's the same guy he's always been with onions and man-to-man, which I love from Bill Raftery. But I was thinking about that. I guess he doesn't leave with Nantz. He just stays on with Ian Eagle now.
I guess that's the case, unless they're pairing Ian Eagle with
anyway,
someone else.
I want Raftery to make Jim Nantz cry. But given Raftery's demeanor, a guy who yells onions on every big shot, I don't know that he's going to make Jim Nantz look like he was chopping onions and that he's going to cry. There are certain guys that can bring it and bring such an emotional resonance to a moment like a Jim Nantz could. I don't know that Raftery or Grant Hill is going to be able to do that.
We're talking about how you can't script UFC. Nantz he scripted this. He wanted this to be his final tournament, not last year, because CBS has the Final Four this year in the rotation.
And because it's in Houston.
And it's in Houston.
His hometown.
Where he got his start. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great...
Or at least where he went to college.
Well, yeah, but Houston was also making a run, I think, at the time. They were number one in the country a couple times this year. Point being, he could have been calling his alma mater in the Final Four. That didn't happen, but it's the setting that he wanted. And here's a, tip of the hat to you, Nantz. I can't wait to see what he says. And, I mean, it's the greatest turn in sports, by the way. He goes from tonight, calling a championship game,
to the Masters.
To Augusta National.
Well, we need to set the odds on him crying or not in the broadcast tonight. I would put it with Nantz, who's just the ultimate professional, at plus 700 to cry. Like, it would have to be long odds that he actually gets emotional.
I think you got it about right. And
I don't think he'll get emotional.
I'd put $5 on it. But
I don't think he got emotional when Faldo started crying.
I'd bet that with Davies' money. But
yeah, even Faldo crying didn't get him emotional. He just sat there and smiled. Did his job.
If Nantz cries, would we know, based on how his voice can go from one octave to the next and whisper to yell?
That would be a talent, to cry and no one knows that you're crying. I mean, if I started crying talking about something right now, you would go, Chad, are you crying? You would ask the question. You would know. You wouldn't even have to ask because it would be so clear that I was crying.
Yeah, it's again, like he goes from
I watched
Sunday
Field of Dreams
Augusta.
with
He'll pitch to one shining moment and walk out.
I watched Field of Dreams with my daughter over the weekend because she badly wanted to watch it. She asked what was the movie where the guy talks in the corn. I said, Field of Dreams. She said, do you want to watch
Children
it?
of the Corn?
Absolutely. And then we're going to watch Children of the Corn 2 because it's better than the original after that. But we watched Field of Dreams. I think she pretty much understood all of it, watched the whole thing. I was impressed. I cried in the end. Every time. It's the music and the setting that gets me to cry every time in a Field of Dreams. Once the music starts to get louder and louder, and it's ease his pain, go the distance. And Dad, spoiler alert, Dad comes out and he's taking off the catcher's equipment to throw with his son. Gets me every time.
Kevin Harlan didn't want to be shown. Remember?
Oh,
with the cameras?
Yeah.
Nantz will be all over the camera tonight.
Nantz will just say, hey, turn that camera towards me. Let's get it off the court for a little bit. Let's make this about me.
We were on a hot streak to begin this tournament, as we promised to bet every game. We bet the board. We have one pick left. We'll give it to you next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into Outkick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll 'em, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Chad, we bet the board. Throughout the tournament, we have one left.
By the way, Hutton, you brought some treats in today.
Yeah.
Holy cow. These are from the farm?
They are. My mom made those.
I got to shout out these. These are some sort of cinnamon nut.
That's
of
a
some form.
It's a pecan.
Pecan. It's in the nut family, right?
Absolutely.
It's great.
But if you have a peanut allergy, it's not the same as a pecan allergy. I've learned that recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like if you, yeah.
So if you have a nut allergy, you can eat pecans.
All nut allergies are not created equal.
Okay. That's good to know.
I didn't know that.
Thank God I never have had a nut allergy, so I can just eat those pecans. They're delicious. Thank you for bringing them in.
Well, and thank God because you're allergic to everything.
I am, yeah. 48 of 52 allergens. They tested me, and I was allergic to them. I'm doing the drops, though, and I'm getting better. I just have eye allergies now. I don't sneeze as much, so it's already
working,
taking effect a little bit. Yeah, the immunotherapy drops.
Well, because it's working for you. Let's keep it going.
Let's get some winners now.
Let's outkick.com/bet is where you can join us. We've bet every game. I'm going to take the winnings, which is I think we have two more wins than we have losses throughout this entire tournament. So we've made some money. I'm going to take that and put it on your pick for tonight, Chad, which is going to be UConn. And riding the consistency.
I flipped. I'm not being very consistent because I was on Dockich this morning, and he asked me my pick, and I hadn't really thought about it, but I just said I like San Diego State's ability to drag people down into the way they play. So I took the Aztecs plus the 7.5.
Okay.
But the more I listen to our guests and the more I think about this game, and the more you see how UConn has rolled through this tournament, Davey brought up a good point. Oftentimes the team in a real struggle and battle in the semifinal loses and isn't as good in the championship game. I think UConn covers the 7.5. So I'm going UConn minus 7.5.
It's now 6.5.
Then I'm definitely going with that.
Yeah, I like it. Here's just for.
But I have changed my mind from this morning.
Here's for a good game. I want a close game with 5 minutes left. Give me that, please. I want this to be an NBA-like game where if you tune in between 3 and 5 minutes remaining on the clock, you have a tight matchup for a game that's going to be played so much better than any NBA.
So
broadcast.
what I want to go back, and I'll do this tomorrow before the show, but so they're the 6th team to win every game leading up to this by double digits. If they win tonight by double digits and go 6 for 6 in the tournament, all double-digit, easy blowout wins for the most part, they have to be the lowest seed to ever do that, right? As a 4 seed? I want to go back and see that. It's got to be like 1990 UNLV was able to do this, right? I know they did. Like not the year they beat Duke by 30. I bet they were a team who did it. It had to be 1 and 2 seeds. This has to be as a 4. Who would expect a 4 seed to just steamroll the entire field the way that UConn has so far?
And in the path that they've done it to some of these teams too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just some layup path that you could point to. Like if Alabama was doing that based on the teams they were facing, you'd be like, oh, well, this happened, this upset took place. You know what it would also be? It would be what people would be saying about the Vols right now if they were in the Final Four.
Well, just any.
you see what I'm
Tennessee
saying.
was a 4 seed too. I'm just saying any just by numerically that a 4 seed is doing this to everyone, not a number 1 seed in the bracket. It's got to be the lowest seed to ever accomplish this.
Yeah, especially considering like they had a 5-week stretch where they were a top 5 program in America. They are, but top 5 ranked team by the AP. And they have turned it back on where the faucet was off once it's a very difficult conference, of course, but for about a 5-week stretch, they're a top 5 program in the AP, and they're back to that. And it's not even close.
And by the way,
not even close right now.
You mentioned Alabama. They were one of the few teams that beat Alabama, the number 1 overall seed this season. They're in an early season tournament.
The team they're facing tonight
beat Alabama.
There you go. Yeah. Let's go Aztecs.
Let's go good game.
Good game.
We just hope everyone has fun tonight.
And then the points.
We don't care about the winner.
Let's
just
win.
Everyone have a good time and come together in the end.
We recap that and a lot of other headlines tomorrow to hit on Hot Mic across the Outkick Network. Join us at 3 Eastern.